I am very excited about tonight's show. The reason I'm excited about tonight's show, and I really, really am, is a couple of things. Number one, I'm having a guest on. He is the biggest reason why I'm excited, but I've also been learning something in transitioning from radio, although I do radio shows all the time on networks and cities all over the country. But in transitioning to podcasting, I think some of the best stuff that I got up here comes out when I'm talking to somebody in depth. But this guy's amazing. Um, Abteen Vaziri is a Iranian American. I know you don't like the hyphenated stuff. I understand, but this is different. He was born in Iran. He came here to freedom as a young man or a boy. We'll get the age in a second. But his father was in the Iranian Air Force and all sorts of stuff before they were overthrown by the radical Islamic Muslim, radical Islamist mullahs. But he ran for Texas Congressional District 32 as a Republican. He's a Christian. He's a former Muslim. He speaks out wildly in a good way. Wildly meaning good, strongly is a better way, boldly against radical Islam and what it's doing to North Texas, Texas, and America. There is no better advocate to rat out and attack verbally and boldly radical Islam and to stop the Islamification of this country and of our towns, our cities, our school districts than Abteen Vaziri. Second of all, he is an expert on visas, on immigration visas. He's not a pro-illegal guy, but he's a guy that does visas with people that have lots of money, and so he knows all about visas and the fraud of H1-B visas and other ones. In fact, he says that the Iranian War, radical Islam, the Islamification of our areas, and H-1B visas, everything's tied in together, and I know that. I spent a lot of time talking to him before we have him on tonight, and I was enthralled with him. He's an amazing guy. He ran for Congress. He didn't win, but he spoke out, and you're going to see how he blasted at the Epic Mosque. He blasted Sharia law, and people went nuts and had to be restrained. So, without further ado, the first thing I got to do is say that this show is brought to you by IRSprob.com, IRSPROB.com, helping good people with IRS problems, specializing in IRS controversy, IRS audits, and tax planning strategies. They've been my CPA. Randy Martin and his whole crew have been my CPAs for over 9 years, and they're amazing. Without any further ado, the guy that I'm so excited to tell you about is that I've been bragging about. I don't know if you could hear me over there, Abteen, but dude, as far as it's going here, you might as well be the president of the United States of America. So,
Well,
first
tell
of
you,
all,
Chris, I was conceived in the United States, but I wasn't born in the United States. So I don't know if I can qualify to be
that's right.
president.
I got a little confused. So you
My
were
parents, my
conceived.
parents did the exact opposite of birthright citizenship. It's funny. I'm a lawyer by training and licensed in Texas and New York, and we have a Supreme Court justice who's just so dumb.
Yes.
You saw her on, talking about birthright citizenship. My parents did the opposite of birthright citizenship. They were here. They got pregnant with me. They're like, we want our kid to be born in Iran. At the time, Iran was a great country. They went back. I was born, and 3 months after I was born, my father was court-martialed and given a death sentence, waiting execution.
Oh my Lord.
My parents literally did the opposite of birthright citizenship.
So you were conceived, I think you said in Louisiana. Do we know the
At
exact
Biloxi,
address? What?
Biloxi, Mississippi.
Do we know the exact address? It's all the same to me.
No,
Biloxi,
no
Louisiana.
exact address, but somewhere on an Air Force base in Biloxi.
Oh, that's right, because your father was doing. Because this is when was he doing joint training with us because of the fact that at that point Iran was our friends until the mullahs overthrew the Shah, right?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but the Iranian, Iran was a very close ally of the United States. I'll tell you something just brilliantly. I just read this book that my lawyers in New York told me about. It was called The King of Kings, and it's about the Shah, the King of Kings, the father of the current crown prince, who basically was overthrown by radical Islam and
Yeah.
arguably by the British and the French, and to a lesser extent the Carter administration. There's a big conspiracy, but anyhow. At the time, Iran and the United States were close allies. A lot of Iranian Air Force officers did all their training here. In that book that I read, I didn't know this actually. I just found this out, a couple of weeks ago that the Shah of Iran was such a close ally of Richard Nixon, and Richard Nixon used him as not just as a friend but as an advisor to
Wow.
really get insight into a lot of Asian countries, a lot of Middle Eastern countries. And the Shah of Iran not only created OPEC and also gave the cartels
Wow.
the idea of price fixings. By the way, if you watch Narcos, the cartels admit that they learned how to create a cartel
Wow.
from the Middle Eastern oil powers. Uh,
Wow.
Felix Gallardo, who was the first cartel boss in Mexico, learned that from the Shah of Iran. But the Shah of Iran also taught Richard Nixon to create this thing that he thought would be beneficial to the United States to help alleviate spikes in the oil markets. And he said, you should create, you guys have a lot of salt reserves, and you should create this strategic petroleum reserve. And he gave him the idea, and not only did he
Wow.
give him the idea, he also offered to fill the entire petroleum reserve for the United States at $1 a barrel below Iran's cost, just to give the
Wow.
United States the power to alleviate any kind of price spikes, given what happened in the early 70s. It took until 1975 for Congress to pass this Strategic Petroleum Act
Right.
after Richard Nixon was out of office. But this was the creation of the Shah of Iran with Richard Nixon, and they had to go get it passed through Congress. So it didn't pass until 1975 after Richard Nixon was out of office. But
Wow.
this is the brilliance. This is how close Iran and the U.S. were. Not only that, there's a lot of interesting history. The Shah of Iran saved the company Grumman out of bankruptcy by ordering 80 F-14s and another 770 Phoenix missiles at a cost of $1 million a pop. And the F-14s were about somewhere 70, 80 million a pop. Saved that company out of bankruptcy. Funny enough, that same company later on merged with Grumman, became Northrop. Merged with Northrop,
Northrop
became
Grumman.
Northrop Grumman, which is the company that makes the B-2 bombers that's bombing Iran. And I've heard confidentially that some of those bombs had a message: "This is for the
Yes.
Shah of Iran," when they're
Yes.
bombing the malls.
Amen. And so I can't wait to get into Iran with you, especially after how fortuitous for you and I to talk the night after the president's speech last night. I was covering it live for Phoenix and Tucson radio stations, and had the privilege of doing that and talking about it with folks that were listening and watching. But I want to start out with because you were born and raised in an Islamic family, but you are now, and there's a difference between Islam and radical Islam. Maybe there's not in your opinion. This is going to be fascinating to hear about you. Your opinion, but you became a Christian, and your platform, one of your biggest things in your platform, if not the biggest thing, period, when you ran for Congress in the 32nd District of Texas, is going after radical Islam, and if I'm not mistaken, the Islamification of North Texas, of Plano, of all over DFW, of Houston, of all over Texas, and this country. Tell me why, and tell me why you're going after it so hard, and tell me why it's a big deal to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's funny, when I was on Grant Sitchel's show, he said, "Oh, you're a Muslim and your whole family's Muslim." I got to clarify that. Iranians are just kind of labeled as Muslims, but a lot of Iranian families, including my family, always hated Islam. My father, who, was in the Air Force, was an atheist, and he cursed out every prophet. He cursed out Islam. He used to say that Islam is the worst religion in the world, and the worst part of Islam is Shia, which Persians, Iranians are. And when he was on his deathbed, he asked us to be cremated. He didn't want accidentally be buried in a
Wow.
Islamic burial grounds. He goes, "I don't want to be buried next to those bastards. Please cremate
Wow.
me, throw me in the ocean." And he rests in White Rock Lake right now. So when we go,
Oh, look at that!
White
Don't
Rock
tell
Lake,
anybody. They're gonna come after you. The communist bastards are gonna come after you for putting stuff in the water.
but it's interesting. I started actually. When I was living in New York, I've been in Texas now 31 years. I joke that my family, we've been refugees twice in our life. Once from
Yep.
Iran, and a second time from the state of California. We moved to California in '91 when we came from Germany, and then we moved to Texas in '95 when I went to Plano Senior High, finished high school here. But I had a stint of about 8-9 years that I lived in New York, and I went to law school there, and worked there for a couple of different hedge funds. But a good friend of mine, Monty Bennett, who's here in Dallas, I got baptized at his ranch by his brother, who's a pastor from New York.
I'm very happy about that. And that was only a
Yeah.
year or so ago, right? I mean, recently.
It was about a year ago, but I started flying from New York, coming to Dallas, and going to Jordan Peterson lectures. And I went to
Awesome.
a couple of his lectures about Christianity, and that really got me interested. And one of the most beautiful things that Jordan Peterson says is that one of the reasons that Europe is gone, because they had a
Yes.
vacuum of faith. They had a lot of atheism, and the Muslims came in and filled in that void, filled in that vacuum. And
Yes.
the good thing that we have in Texas is that we have Christianity. And I joke, and not joke, but I'm serious. If the Crusades were today, I promise you, many of the frontline generals and soldiers will be of Persian descent.
So, and why is that?
Well, listen, I
And
got
Persia
interviewed.
is Iran. For those who don't know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's people
Well,
who don't
well,
know. You know.
Persia has had a 5,500 year history and is one of the oldest countries in the world.
Yeah.
About 1,400 years ago, after 500 years of Persian Roman wars, both the Romans were weak and the Persians were weak. So the Muslim armies found a very weak Persian empire and came and attacked and took over and killed 400,000 Persians and took 130,000 Persians as slaves and sold them in slave markets in Medina and Mecca. And that's where it all started. This fight really started 1,400 years ago. But for 1,400 years, they've tried to turn Persians into Arabs and they've tried to turn Persians into Muslims. And, slowly they've succeeded, but we've always kept our identity. We've always kept our Persian holidays, our Persian heritage, our Persian Zoroastrian holidays, all of our customs, our poetry, our music, our food, our
Freddie
wine.
Mercury.
Yes, Freddie Mercury was Parsi. He was Zoroastrian family who fled, went to Mumbai, and that's a lot of Zoroastrians were fled Persia. But this has been a 1,400-year battle. But in a moment of weakness, I think it's interesting because at 1,400 years ago, they found the Persian Empire really weak and attacked and killed and enslaved everyone and forced everyone to convert to Islam at the sword. But in 1979. Iran was a powerful country. It had the fourth largest military in the world.
Yes.
It had the one of its ninth or 13th largest economy in the world, just flourishing. The average GDP had gone up by 20x and then tripled again from there. So it was just growing really leaps and bounds and fast. So they couldn't beat Persia militarily, but they got the communists and the Islamists, and they came and destroyed Iran from within. And that's what scares me, because that reminds me of the United States. Iran was a very powerful country. They couldn't. The Muslim armies were weak. These were all Soviet Marxist trained guerrillas, terrorists like Yasser Arafat. Those are the people that came and overthrew the government, overthrew with the help of British intelligence, French intelligence, and the Carter administration. But that reminds me a lot of what the leftists are trying to do here in the United States. Because the U.S. military, I mean, we see how strong the U.S. military is. They wiped out Iran Air Force and Navy in a matter of 2 weeks.
Yes.
And now these Islamists, they have their eyes set on the United States.
Yes.
And the shining bright light on the hill is Texas. They want Texas.
Why?
Because Texas is the bastion of freedom. Well, let me explain why.
Again, the Islamists, you're saying, want Texas. And they are being aggressive, and they're not hiding it. We're looking at Epic Mosque. That whole neighborhood has been Islamicized. The entire, every house, and these houses are $1 to $2 million homes. At least $700,000 to $2 million homes all around Epic Mosque. I toured it. I drove around. I took pictures. I've showed it on my podcast. And so. Where's this money coming from? They're driving Mercedes, all sorts of nice cars. It's okay if you do that. I'm not knocking that, of course. But what I'm saying is every strip mall in that area is Islamic. Every house is Islamic. The mosque is massive. And now they're building a freaking city. And then you saw the in C Holdings LLC, a.k.a. Sustainable Cities USA, and I don't believe that's canceled. Just because Congressman Lance Gooden says, hey, I talked to them, and they say it's canceled. Oh, wow. I want freaking letterhead from these people saying they're done. But go ahead, just tell me your thoughts on what I just went after.
Yeah, listen, so a lot of people don't know this, right? So Egypt was a Christian country. Alexandria, Egypt was the bastion of freedom, and that was a Christian town. 700 years ago, Egypt fell to the Muslims, right? Lebanon and Beirut. Lebanon was a Christian country, and then they opened their Christian hearts and allowed migrants, and they took in a lot of Palestinians. Well, the Palestinians came, and then they grew and they populated and had 7 kids and basically took the majority of that country and had a civil war, destroyed Lebanon. Lebanon was the Paris of the Middle East. Beirut was the Paris of Middle East. And they destroyed that country. Now it's 50-50. And by the way, Hezbollah, which is a creation of the Islamic Republic, now runs that. Now recently they've been exiled. but they destroyed Lebanon and they destroyed
Yes.
Iran. Why? Because out of all the Middle East, the two most Western, the two most bastions of freedom in the Middle East were
Iran.
Lebanon and Iran. And they
Wow.
figured if they could get those two most Western, most,
Caliphate.
if they could get them to fall, they'll get all the Middle East to fall. Well,
Yes.
guess what? They were right. They
Yes.
got Lebanon and Iran to fall, which were the most free
Wow.
countries in that. And then
Wow.
and the Middle East fell. So what happened next? Then they go to Europe, right? They're like, there's no way that London and Berlin and Paris and Munich are gonna turn. Well, guess what? Those fell,
It's
and
done.
those countries are gone. So
Let me
now
talk
they
to
got
you.
their eyes set on the United States.
Can I pause you right there?
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to be,
No,
but I want to
perfect.
stop. I want to stop real fast because, and you were hitting on this, and this buttresses what you were saying a little earlier ago about Europe, which has become Islamicized completely. And I'm going to tell you which I'm going to start with one thing first. Okay, well I'll do both at the same time. Number one, my pastor, I'm with Dr. Jeffers now. My pastor and my friend at First Baptist Dallas, they're one of my podcast sponsors. But before First Baptist Dallas, where I've been a member and going for over 11 years, the first 5 years I was here, I was at a small church a Bible church in North Dallas. And our pastor played something. He was more of a nice, meek guy in a good way, meek in a good quality, like Jesus was meek, humble, power under control. And he played this thing one time. I'm sitting there getting ready for a sermon, and he plays this video. And this is, like I said, 13 years ago maybe. And it says, it's got the dark sound, and it's got a narrator, and he shows, and he says, he basically goes through how Germany, Britain, and France will become Islamic nations in 15 or 20 or so years, roughly. And they show the population, and they show the Muslim population, boom, 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 having 5 kids. They show the secularist, humanist population, which you hit on already. The secularist humanists, where they might have a kid, at best one, but they're not married or they're gay or whatever. And I'm not going after gay people. That's a whole separate thing we'll talk about another time. My beliefs are my faith, which is that it's not okay, but that's separate. My point is, the more humanist, the more secularist, the more gay, the more this and that. You can't procreate. They're having one baby at best. There's no marriage. And here comes Islam, and wham! And the leftist liberals bow to them and join with them, or just are afraid of any Islamophobia, any racial attacks. And they allow them to invade their countries, okay? So that's kind of tying together the video I saw, which stunned me 13 years ago. Tell me about that, because that's where you were kind of wrapping it all up into, and then bringing it to America, where we're at right now.
So I think Brigitte Gabriel, who is a Christian from Lebanon, talks about this, right? There was a Holy Land Foundation lawsuit that was here in Texas,
Yes,
right?
I know all
Under
about it.
that lawsuit, they got a piece of document. That document was dated May 22nd, 1991. In that document, and I have a copy of it, I can share it with you.
Good,
In that
I want that.
They list exactly how they're going to use our organizations, our NGOs, and they're going to get elected office, and they're going to destroy us from within. If you look at the playbook of what's been happening in Texas, it's word for word from that document in 1991. That's not that long ago. I moved to the United States in 1991. That was 36, 37 years ago. That document is exactly their playbook, and they're doing it. And look, the Somali, daycare centers, those people weren't sophisticated. Democrats are helping them. The Democrats are helping them, and they're getting their cut. The H1-B fraud that's going on here in Texas, that's actually leaps and bounds bigger than Somalia or the Somali Minnesota fraud.
We're going to hit that next.
It is unbelievable. There are, I had, when I was running my campaign, my office, we ran all the numbers. There are more H1Bs. There's something like 700,000 to 800,000 H1Bs in North Texas. There are more H1Bs in North Texas than the rest of the country combined.
Disgusting.
And Greg Abbott, who we think is a great, Republican leader, he's been complicit.
Yes.
Not just he tried to stop it towards the end because he had an election.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, he got 14 million campaign contribution from a gentleman named Sayed Omar, who Sayed is not a name. Sayed is a title, which means he's a direct descendant from the Prophet Muhammad, a Pakistani oil and gas executive who is the direct descendant of Prophet Muhammad, giving the governor of Texas 14 million. And then the governor of Texas given 4 million in funding to build mosques. If that doesn't raise your eyebrow, and this is the good guys, this is the Republicans.
What was that last part again? You said about building mosques, money to build mosques. What was that last part?
The state of Texas has given $4 million of state money to these mosques to build mosques.
How?
through different they got charitable organizations, they got the daycares, this, that,
Okay.
and charter schools, all of that. But they're using our money. They're using our money. And by the way, I'm going in front of the Texas Board of Education April 7th to testify because CARE
Yes.
is a known terrorist organization that finances terror in Hamas and Palestinian organizations. They go show up and they pretend like, oh, everything's nice. They're just peaceful. They're just freedom of speech, First Amendment.
No.
But nobody comes on the other side to testify. So I'm going over there. I'm going to go testify in their
I'm going to text you about that. I might want to join you there.
They're teaching jihad, and they're teaching hating Israel and hating America. Listen, this country has been one of the most perfect countries for 250 years. We've had all these freedoms. We've had checks and balances. This is a country of immigrants. Every single person that's in the United States at some point, unless you're Native American,
Yes.
you're an immigrant. But
Right.
One thing that we've always had in common, every single immigrant class we've ever had in history, they all had one thing in common. They all wanted to be Americans, and they
Yes.
loved this country. And today, for the first time ever, we have a bunch of immigrants that hate this country. Those immigrants need to be booted on their ass and sent
Yes.
back to whatever
Yes.
hell they came from. This is not a racist thing. This is not a xenophobic thing.
It's a factual thing.
It's like, if you hate America, get the F out. We don't want you
Right.
here. This
Right.
is the first time in history that happened. They live in the best country in the world, but they're not coming here to immigrate. They're not coming here to assimilate. The Jewish people that came here, they wanted to assimilate. The Irish came here, they wanted to assimilate. The Germans, the Irish, the English,
Poles,
everybody,
which is what
Italians, Poles,
yeah.
everybody came here to assimilate. And the early Muslims, there's a lot of good Muslims in this country that have assimilated. You know what the litmus test is? If they eat bacon and they don't wear a hijab, they're good Muslims. If they don't, you have to question them.
If they eat bacon and they're not wearing hijab, and I'm being serious, and that's what you say.
I mean, that's serious. Listen, my father.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm not
That's
talking
okay.
about some KKK member telling you this. My father,
I know.
whose entire family is Muslim, who was born Muslim himself, when he would see people wearing hijab in the United States,
Yes.
he would get physically angry. And my
Good.
father was
That's good
someone
to
that was
know.
tortured by these assholes, and he knew better. And excuse my French.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
He knew that once the hijab comes, there comes the rest of it. And if you read the documents from the Holy Land Foundation,
That's where I want to get into in a minute. I want to get in a minute.
Level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 1 is like they're nice and cuddly and they're simulating,
Yes.
blah blah blah. Level
Yes.
2, they start taking positions of office. Level 3 is where they're at in the UK, where they're gang raping women.
Yes. Okay. This is so important. There's so many things on this I want to get into. Do you know who Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is?
I don't.
Okay, that's okay. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, I became familiar with him as a guest on Fox News and as a guest on Mark Levin's show. He is a moderate Muslim that you're talking about. I don't know if his wife wears a hijab. He's a physician in Phoenix. He's running for office, I think, right now, as senator or something of that nature. But he formed an organization. I can't remember the exact one. I could pull it up here. But the point is, I've interviewed him several times over the years. And he calls out radical Islam in every shape or form, CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood, everything to just as you do, 110%. I believe he's a conservative, this kind of, Republican, all this kind of stuff. And he calls it all out. I believe that he's probably fitting that bill because here's a big freaking divide we got within our community, our Republican community, you, me, all of us. And the problem is people, I showed you the video. And I could play it. I think I have it in here. I don't know if I even have. It doesn't matter. Some guy walked into at the DFW airport. The Iraqi soccer team was coming through DFW, I think, or coming here for a soccer game for the FIFA, whatever it is. I'm not a soccer guy. I think soccer sucks, but that's just me. Okay, but they're coming off the team, and there's people that are, I guess, Iraqi that are holding up a banner for them, and it looks like it's in Arabic. And some guy, gets mad and goes and tears it up and starts cussing at him and stuff like that. I don't know what the thing said, but I'm going to say this. I have a friend from my first church I mentioned in North Dallas who is a Christian, and he's from Iraq. And I don't know if he would greet them and he would have it in Arabic because maybe they don't speak English. But if that was my friend, I'd want to beat that son of a bleep up because I don't know. So this is the thing where some people think if you're Muslim, I'm not here to play the game on the left side. I'm not that way. You know me, and everybody knows me. But how do we determine who's a bad Muslim and a good Muslim. Basically, if they eat bacon, and that really is, it's that simple. I'm not being mocking you,
Yeah,
but you're saying it's that simple. If they eat bacon, then don't wear a hijab.
if you come in here, listen, there's a lot of good Muslims that are running away from these countries that are totalitarian, that are destroying them, and they were born Muslim and they're coming here, and their goal is they love the United States and they want to be American, they want to assimilate. Then those are the people that we want. But people that are coming here and they're so set in their religious beliefs that they're doing genital mutilation of their daughter. They're forcing their daughters to wear hijab. They won't allow them to assimilate. They're all this crazy stuff about going to mosque and trying to build mosque and trying to basically, if they're coming here to build their own communities and they want to be segregated.
That's exactly what we're seeing.
Then that's an invasion. That's not immigration.
That's exactly what we're seeing in Epic Mosque, and you know that, and I know that. You've called that out. So I'll tell you what, you talked about the hijabs. When I was at Epic Mosque for that hearing on Epic City, I got to see people coming and going at the mosque and going into worship or coming out to worship, not to be nasty, but a false god. I saw them, their daughters and stuff, and they were all in hijabs and everything, full to the tilt. And it's pretty scary just seeing these folks, especially when you see the whole hijab where it's full body, all you see the eyes. That's like, what in God's name are you doing here?
There's a video that I just got on social media. There's a guy walking to Epic Mosque because I recognize it because I've been there. They called the cops on me. And this guy. I
want to talk to you about that too because I had the Plano police contact me yesterday.
Sure. This guy's walking into the Epic Mosque and he's holding the hands of a 13-year-old. And the video narrator says that's his wife. And he's got 3 more children that he's married to. Now, some people said that's a false video. That's his daughter. But is it crazy to think that the guy's married to a 13-year-old when Prophet Muhammad married a 6-year-old? That's not crazy. And by the way, we don't want that garbage here. If you and by the way,
that's child molestation. That's rape.
That's pedophilia. These are the same people that send me death threats and send me messages and say, Epstein, you're a goy, whatever the term is.
I know what a goy is. I'm a goy.
You're getting paid by APAC and you're Islamophobic. And you know what I say? I said, if you know who to contact at APAC to get some money, I'll be gladly happy. I'll wear an Israeli patch on my shoulder. If you know who to call to get money from Israel, I'll gladly do that. When they call me an Islamophobe, I said the correct term is Islamotrauma because phobia is irrational fear, but people in Iran have 47 years of rational fear of their daughters being raped, them being murdered, and them being killed by the Islamists. So it's not an irrational fear. It's a rational fear. The correct term is Islamotrauma. In fact, I trademarked the term Islamotrauma.
I love that.
I got a trademark.
Wait a minute. You went to UTD, which is where my son just graduated from. We talked about that off the air. Sure. Then you went to SMU Cox School of Business, which is a pretty darn big deal. And then you went to Fordham Law in New York City. And I'm not shocked that you patented or whatever you call it. You got the copyright or something like that.
Yeah, I got a trademark. I got a trademark on the term Islamotrauma. I'm going to sell T-shirts.
Let me ask you a question. I was not going to share this publicly because I don't know what's going on, but the Plano Police Department reached out to me yesterday. Okay. And it's I'm going to read what they said, and I have it hidden on my page. And here's what's bizarre, Abteen, counselor, since you're obviously an attorney at law in Texas and New York. By the way, the Texas bar is one of the hardest in the country, I hear. Is that right?
It is. The New York bar is the hardest.
That's what I heard. So you've passed the hardest and second hardest, 2 of the top hardest ones in the entire country.
Yeah, and the other one that's really hard is California.
That's what I heard too. Okay, so so I got this from, because we can tie this in with you saying the Plano Police talked to you about something or whatever. You mentioned that, so that's what made me chose to do this. I have it hidden still on my page, but this is also what's crazy bizarre, Abteen. If you're a Plano police officer, a public information officer, would you send me a DM through my Facebook page, my public Facebook page, or would you put a freaking post on a comment? And I put this post up saying I will be on the air in Phoenix and Tucson tomorrow, filling in, like as I mentioned. And they literally put a comment on my public page on a post saying I'm going to be on in Phoenix. Mr. Kroc, And this is officially from the Plano Police Department because I clicked on it, it goes right to their official page, and it gives the number to the Plano Police Department, non-emergency. Mr. Kroc, I am reaching out to you on behalf of the Plano Police Department regarding the incident at Epic on March 20th, 2026. We have been made aware of your post concerning the canceled meeting and would like to speak to you about that meeting and subsequent cancellation. Please contact me through the non-emergency number 972-424-5678 and ask for the Public Information Office. No name, no officer putting their name on there. No, I believe this is authentic for those reasons because it comes from their.
What happened on March 20th?
That's what I'm saying. Well, I guess that was the Friday when the hearing was at Epic. I was there. Did you say you were there for that hearing at Epic?
No, I wasn't there. But let me tell you, there's a gentleman who used to be in the Special Forces who was also playing a police officer himself.
Okay.
And he went to city council and he testified that the way that the Epic Mosque, some of the buildings were built, they were built like a military fortress.
Yes.
And by the way, guess what the Epic Mosque overlooks? It overlooks the bomb squad of the Plano Police Department.
Yes.
The Plano Police Department is next door.
Can I tell you something? These are all personal experiences, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the show before I had you on that like having a guest on, it was Chris Putnam first, and then it's you. It brings out a lot more depth because we get conversational, so I get to think of other things to mention. And I drove around. Not only did I drive around the Epic neighborhood and see it was completely Islamified, but I also pulled around an area to turn around, and it was the Plano Police Department, and I saw that, and I'm like, because I saw his speech, the former Plano police officer speech, and I saw the pictures, and I literally was sitting there in the parking lot, and I took a picture. I said, oh my gosh, this is exactly where he was talking about. And so I was just like in the freaking zone, like, holy crap. All these couple years or several years I've been hearing about this. I'm in the middle of it now. I'm going, wow.
And by the way, I noticed the same thing you noticed when I've been there a few times now. And, and it's so interesting. They chose this location that's really on the border of Plano and Murphy to say, one city is going to be like, oh, that's their problem or that's their problem. That was done also on purpose to confuse different jurisdictions. But when you go there, they have these streets called Medina Villas or Mecca Villas, and then you have all these hijab places, and they have these Islamic academies. I mean, I grew up in Plano. I went to Plano East. I'm having my 30-year reunion this year. Plano East, I actually had a house next to Plano East. That's, I used to live there. And that neighborhood is unrecognizable. And by the way, all of these stores are completely empty.
Yes.
So they're planning an invasion to fill all these stores up that hasn't happened yet. And the tool they're trying to use to do that is the H1-B program.
Okay, now we're going to get into that in a minute. Let's go back. Okay, but so going the Plano Police Department. The point I'm trying to make in here is I went to Epic. I observed. I was interviewed by Savannah Hernandez. Sav says she just released a 31-minute documentary I shared on my Twitter feed. I was interviewed. They showed me being interviewed by her in there. I was part of the 31-minute documentary. About the Indian American or Indians supposedly taking over the area here, along with the radical Islamists, and so I was there. I interviewed with her. I talked to a bunch of people. I gathered everything in the scene. I drove around the neighborhood and I did my live, or not my live, but I put together a video and then I posted it and it went, viral like most of them do when you talk about crazy stuff like this. I did it from inside of my car in the parking lot while, the Islamist folks that go to Epic were pulling up parking, going in and out, but nothing negative happened. I didn't have any issues. There was nothing negative that happened. I'm not an idiot. I've been doing this for 25 years. Never been sued, nor, not even sued, never been sued. And or anything happened, nothing bad. So when I get this email from the Plano Police Department, quote, I'm regarding the incident at Epic on March 20th, which is the hearing. That's when they had the hearing for the MUD, the Municipal Utility District, to build Epic City. And they canceled it, but they didn't do it until we all showed up and there's canceled. So we were on the property doing stuff. And nobody there from the people came out from the mosque and talked to us, or that we were in charge. Nobody said, get out of here, or we're calling the cop. Nothing bad happened, okay? So he says, regarding the incident at Epic, what incident? So did something happen? Did they call the Plano police and sick them on me because I showed up? I mean, what is this? So I'm like,
probably. Well, let me tell you what happened with me, and we can compare notes.
Yeah.
So I think it was February 16th. It was a Monday night. I get a random message a few days before, maybe a week before, on Facebook Messenger, and some guy that claimed that he was one of the people working there, one of the imams at the Big Mosque,
Yeah.
invited me to candidate for him. I mean, imagine we're right in the smack middle, literally in the smack middle, maybe 2 weeks away from 3 weeks away from the
Can
primaries.
I show the
And
video of that? Can I show the video of that, or do you want to set up the story first? You tell me.
yeah, let me set up the story.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I got invited to candidate for him. I told my campaign manager, I was like, I can't believe, first of all, that they have a candidate for him. Second, I can't believe they invited me. They must have not looked at my website to see I'm a Christian, but
Right.
probably because I'm of Iranian descent. And by the way, when I went there, I met a guy who was a Republican, and they told me there'd be other people from 32, and they didn't lie, actually. There was one other person from Texas 32, but he was a Democrat, and he was wearing Free Palestine on his
Oh
hand.
my gosh.
One of the dumbest people I've ever met. He said,
I
"Oh,
bet.
Israel is killing all the Iranians." I was like, "No, Israel is actually saving the Iranians." Anyway, I showed up. Everybody was a Democrat, and one guy's name was Mark Nugent, I believe. He was a Republican running against Keith Self. And then he's like, "Assalamu alaikum, my brother," and all this stuff. I was
Wow.
like, "Okay, well, how you doing?" And then he told me he's getting all these funding from the Democrats. Even though he's a Republican. And then, I guess he is there's another guy named Zishan, who's basically, if you look at his campaign literature, literally trying to be another Mamdani, word for word.
Right.
And they kept praising Brother Mamdani at that meeting. But it was like a lot of AIPAC hating, a lot of Israel hating. And then, they asked me questions, and now you can show the video.
Okay, so here it is. This is from the Dallas Express, and you should be able to hear this, Abteen, but of course you lived it. So this is the first one. This is where you call out radical Islam. You're wearing your USA cap. You're standing up. It's your turn to respond to questions. And I'm going to play it, and let me ask you a quick question out of it, too. Here we go.
Wherever it is. I called out Valentina Gomez for calling all Muslims, 30 names and being a complete bigot and trying to get social media followers. I speak the truth. But I also want to say, as someone whose entire family is Muslim, I'm not down with Sharia law. Sharia law says that women on that side of the room are worth half as much as men. Do you all agree with that? No, that's not true. That is true. That is 100% true. In Iran, Sharia law says women are worth half as much as men. That is 100% true. That is 100% true. And I'll talk about ICE. I'll talk about ICE. I think what the Biden administration did was a travesty to open the borders and let 20 million illegals in this country. This is a country of immigrants. I'm an immigrant, but this is also a country of laws, and we have to abide by the immigration laws. I'm not down with ICE doing all the inhumane things the way that they're handling it, but I also agree that people that are here illegally should be deported, 100%.
Okay, so there was reportedly a man in the audience. You hear people yelling and getting mad that you call out Sharia and said it treats these women like, cattle or whatever. I forget the exact word. In fact, you inspired me when I spoke at the Wiley ISD school board for the first time a month and a week ago. I literally said that Islam treats women like cattle, and these women, I pointed back to the audience, are not cattle, and etc. But what happened? Because one man had to be restrained. Other people were yelling at you because you called out Sharia law. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, listen, these women, they're all wearing hijab. They're on the left, on the right-hand side of the room, as Islamists do, they separate the men and the women. And I said,
Wow.
"Are you okay with being worth half as much as men?" And they said,
Yes.
you're lying. But the thing is, I could read the Quran. I know I know everything they know, and I could read it, and I can call their BS. If an American would say that, and they would be like, "No, you're wrong. I can show you receipts," they would question themselves. I'm not questioning myself because I know that they're lying. And I would
Right.
show them receipts, and I'd be like, "Listen, you can lie to these white people. You're not going to lie to me." And let me explain another thing. Let me explain what the genesis of hijab even is. And this is why I don't understand why the feminists are taking their side. And feminists should be there with pitchforks.
I'll tell you why the Marxist leftists have merged with the Islamists. My buddy Eric Erickson put it this way. The Marxist leftists have merged with the Islamists until they finish our side off. When they finish us off, then they'll have their own battle.
100%. And that's exactly what happened in Iran. I could talk about that.
Wow.
But here's the crazy part. The whole genesis of hijab is that under Sharia law, under Islamic law, Arab men are not supposed to have any kind of personal responsibility. And the whole genesis is that if a woman somehow shows their hair, then the man
He
is
could
going to be
rape her.
enticed to rape her.
Yes.
And under Islamic Sharia law, it's fair game because she showed her hair. That's how much stupidity there is, even in the concept of hijab. And they're bringing this backwardness here, and no one's questioning it. Hijab should be outlawed because men should have personal responsibility, and normal human being men should have personal responsibility to not rape a woman. We don't have to help them. We don't need, they don't need guardrails. They don't need bicycle guardrails to not rape. They should just buy. And if there's such animals that they're
Yes.
going to rape women, then they should be in this freaking country.
Yes.
So that
This is
tells you how terrible hijab and Sharia laws are just by genesis. Most Americans don't understand what they even mean. That's what they mean.
You look at the former CBS News reporter, I can't remember her name, she lives here now. She was reporting in the Arab Spring, and they gang raped her in Egypt because she was a beautiful American woman not covering up with a hijab, and because she was a woman. And they raped her. It's vile, it's satanic, and it's disgusting, and you and I know that and agree that. So basically, that's what it is. I mean, you're teaching me, and I think all of us, so much. Going back to the Holy Land Foundation, and I'm going to just do a quick thing here. So the Holy Land Foundation was a Richardson-based alleged charitable cause for Palestinian people. They raised about $5 to $7 million, and I know you're going to correct me on some of this, I'm sure, but they raised about $5 to $7 million under the auspices of Palestinian aid, but it was to kill Jews, to fund Hamas, terrorism, to kill Jews and infidels, etc. And several people went to jail because of that, and they're in jail right now. They went to jail for decades, several people from the Holy Land Foundation in Richardson, Texas. And an unindicted co-conspirator in that case, the largest ever terrorism fundraising case in U.S. history, is CARE, the Council on American and Islamic Relations. They met in a hotel room. They were wiretapped by the FBI and Department of Justice in a hotel room in Boston, talking to the Holy Land Foundation people, saying that we have to wage jihad, CARE said, a nonviolent jihad. We're going to take advantage of the freedoms and the laws of this land, the media, to turn this country against itself for us to continue our cause of radical Islam. Am I off on that? Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's exactly right. And the way that, Elon Musk said something beautiful. He said, George Soros is an evil genius, but he's cracked the code. He's a hacker. And
Yeah.
the way that Elon Musk said is beautiful. He's a hacker. He's very smart, and he figured out how to hack our system to use our NGOs and
Yeah.
use all these different government organizations like USA to take billions of dollars in, and then use those billions of dollars to create destruction. And by the way, there are two lobby organizations today, and I wrote a 114-page document that I published on my website, abteenvaziri.com, and it basically lists that the influence that Tehran, the Islamic Republic, has in our government. There's a guy named Trita Parsi. He started an organization. Actually, I think it was started here in Dallas. It was called NIAC, National Institute of something of Iranian whatever council. And it started as a student organization, as a 501c3, then it has a 501c4 arm. They got in trouble for FARA because they were doing lobbying for the Islamic Republic. They're the ones that started the whole conversation with the Biden administration. I'm sorry, with the Obama administration, with the JCPOA. They're the ones that set up all the meetings, and they got in trouble with FARA. So the guy left.
FARA is the Foreign Agents Registration Act. You have to tell if you are a foreign agent on behalf of another foreign entity, or an agent of a foreign government, and if you don't register, it's a felony. Yeah.
Right. So they haven't registered. They got in trouble, but they never got in trouble. Well, the guy, Trita Parsi, left that organization. NIAC still does lobbying for the Islamic Republic, but Trita Parsi now started a new organization called the Quincy Institute. And guess who the two first founders of this organization was?
George Soros.
George Soros, Open Society Foundation, and the Rockefeller Brothers. Wow. And then a bunch of other organizations, including several, high net worth Iranians that are tied with the Islamic Republic. And by the way, right now he's on Steve Bannon's show trying to buy the Islamic Republic time, saying, Islamic Republic is bad, but they're going to crumble. We don't need to send troops. If you send troops, it's going to kill American kids. So the lobbying that they do is very advanced and very subtle. And one of the things that these Islamists, they're all got trained in the Soviet Union, and they learned this from the KGB, is that they're very sophisticated. They set up their own opposition. And they're influenced like, the hands of a kraken or, octopus. Yeah. They're in every organization. They have influence in every organization. And they set up They set up their own opposition to find out who's against them. That's how my father got court-martialed. My father went to a meeting by a bunch of guys that wanted to start a coup and overthrow the Islamic Republic. And he went to one meeting, and that meeting was set up by the Islamic Republic. By the way, these guys are illiterate mullahs. They don't even have a first-grade education. How were they that sophisticated to set these organizations up in the beginning of the revolution? They were trained by the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union helped them. And here's how
because
stupid
they are the radical Islamic regime of Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran. The radical Islamic regime are besties with China, are besties with North Korea, and are besties with Russia, which makes complete sense what you're saying.
Yeah, but the Carter administration, with the help of MI6, overthrew the Shah of Iran and put these mullahs in charge with a strategy that they were going to encircle the Soviet Union with Islamism in Afghanistan and Iran and Turkey and all these countries. And that was the whole point. They were going to beat the Soviet Union. Well, guess what? Who was the biggest beneficiary of Iran falling? Was Soviet Union. They stole all of Iran's gas. The Caspian Sea, that has the largest reserve, the second largest gas reserves in the world, and the largest caviar in the world, the largest production of caviar in the world, that used to be owned 50% by Iran and 50% by the Soviet Union. Then it got switched to 20%. All the 5 countries that are former Soviet countries. Today, Iran only has 12%. The Russians have stolen all of that gas from Iran. And if the British were smart and the Democrats were smart, they would never let that happen. But they did.
Let me ask you. I got to do a quick timeout for my sponsors. Can you stand by though? Because I want to get into Wiley ISD. I want to get into. I want to hit Wiley ISD along with Epic City. The concept of trying to do that, along with Sustainable Cities USA, the Islamic, they're trying to make this city in Kaufman County. I don't believe it's over because I'm not going to take the word of one politician, which is like famous last words. Trust me, I'm here from the government. I'm here to help or whatever. And then I want to get into the H1-B visas along with the Iran war itself. Stand by, brother. Okay. All right. Abteen Vaziri, of course, ran for Congress in District 32, Republican, and calls out radical Islam. Thanks, brother. Stand by. This show is brought to you by IRSprob.com, IRSprob.com, just as my friend Randy Martin, the CPA, calls it, IRSprob.com, helping good people with IRS problems, specializing in IRS controversy, IRS audits, and tax planning strategies. For over 9 years, Randy Martin's been my CPA for my business, which is what this show is right here, along with my wife's business and all of our taxes, and have to do all sorts of strategic things when the kids mess up on their taxes. If you have IRS problems, you need to call Randy. If you want tax planning strategies, call Randy. You can call 214-214-3000. That's 214-214-3000. Or just call, or just go to irsprob.com. One more thing I want to share with you is my plumbing and my foundation have been done by Jim Dutton from Texas Home Improvement. His company, it's called Due West Foundation and Plumbing. I'm going to go back to camera because I want to just show my authenticity. This house that I'm sitting in, every piece of plumbing, my water heater, every time I have a backup, 17 feet of pipe replaced under my foundation, all that, piers and beams. Piers, I should say, that had to be put under with that foundation work with the pipe replacement. All Due West Foundation and Plumbing. We're such good friends with Jim and his wife Mary and his family Johan and Adam that my wife worked for them with Jim and his wife for 3 years. And so they also do retention walls. They do root shields, which is what they did for my house to protect it from roots underneath the foundation. And they do concrete leveling and retention walls, and they graded my yard. So they're the best. If you want the best, call Due West, du-west.com. You have a plumber and foundation guy for life. Call 972-406-0912, 972-406-0912, or go to du-west.com, du-west.com. All right, let's go to Abteen Vaziri again. Brother, welcome back. Thanks for your patience. I'm really glad to have you. You ran for Congress in the 32nd District, and you call out radical Islam as an Iranian American. Is that okay to call you that? Because I know people are like, that's a stupid label. He's an American. But, I mean, is that okay to do that? What do you call yourself when you describe it?
It's funny. I've lived in California. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Iran. I've lived in Germany. So I'm Iranian. I love the culture, the food, the music. But I'm American. But people ask me, should I call it Iranian or American? I said, neither. I'm really Texan. I'm more Texan than anything else.
I want to tell a quick story. When I was in Atlanta at the Monster Talk station there, before coming here to DFW 16 years ago, there was a sweet woman. I was going door to door. My wife does garage sales, and she did at the time and managed them and had neighborhood ones and such for all of us. And I met this sweet older lady, and she offered me baklava. And she brought me in the house, and she was wonderful, sweet. It was like my grandmother or something, you know. And then she said, I said, "Oh, where are you from?" Because she had an accent. She says, "I'm Persian," and she was afraid to tell me she was Iranian because people don't know; they're ignorant. And I said, "Absolutely, I already knew the Iranian people." And you correct me if I'm wrong, but about 85 to 90% maybe of the people of Iran right now have no problem with Israel, have no problem with us. They're highly educated, and they want their country back, and they're not radical Islamists at all. Is that accurate? Is that about right?
That is more than accurate, but I would go a little bit further. It's not that they don't have a problem with Israel. They love Israel. People don't understand this, that something like 15 to 20% of Israel's population are Iranians, Iranian
Wow.
Jews that were forced to leave in the beginning of the revolution.
Wow.
That's probably one of the only reasons Israel hasn't nuked Iran, because a lot of Israelis and a lot of people in Israeli defense forces are Iranian.
Wow.
And that's why Mossad has been so successful
Wow.
infiltrating the Iran, because a lot of Israelis speak fluent Farsi because they're from
Can I
Iran.
tell you something? There's a series on Apple called Tehran. I don't know if you're
man. It's so accurate, by the way.
Have you
Very
seen
accurate.
that one? Have you seen that series?
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with it. My buddy
Dude,
Monty
me
Bell.
too. Me
My buddy
too.
Monty, it is. It's so funny. I use that song. Da-na-na-na-na.
Yes,
A lot
I'm
of
going to
times
pull it
when
up.
I use that on my post, it's such a cool song.
It's incredible.
The producer of the show got killed recently.
Yes.
He got murdered.
She died in Italy or Greek when they filmed Greece.
And it was very controversial. I think she was murdered.
Yeah, and the show released a statement saying that it didn't happen. Let me tell folks, I came across a show named Tehran after I got Apple TV years ago, and I was glued immediately. And it's
Great
riveting,
show.
it's intense, it's just absolutely freaking awesome. And the depth that the brilliance of the Mossad and what's the other one? There's a Mossad, and then what's the other one? They infiltrate in they got two ones, Mossad, and they got the other one. What's the one that's the internal FBI? It's Mossad is intelligence form, right? And
Yeah,
I can't remember.
not an IDF, but I only know
Yeah.
Mossad. I don't know.
So, anyways, but the in-depth entrenchment all over that country, everywhere. They're everywhere. The Israeli spies, the Mossad. So that makes sense how they're so intertwined, and they can speak Iranian Farsi, perfectly and with the accent and everything like that, while also looking like they're Iranian and get away with it. I mean, is that pretty much it in that regard?
Yeah, so I go a step further. The most popular figure inside of Iran today is probably the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, but a close, very, very close second and third are Bibi and Trump. People absolutely adore. They have songs that they make about Bibi because, and that's one of the other things I said at Epic Mosque. I said, not a single Muslim country came to the help of the Iranian people. Israel is the only country that helped the Iranian people with the help of the United States.
Right.
And the other thing I said, those guys were praying at Epic Mosque. I said, let me ask you, have you prayed for the 45,000 people that died?
Amen.
That's
Amen.
the real massacre. And you know what they said? They started booing and said, no, you're lying about the numbers, and they were Mossad. I said, let me ask you, a 6-year-old child that was murdered with a 50 caliber by the government, that was a Mossad agent? You guys are crazy. So I proved that Epic Mosque is not a house of worship. It's a political ideology.
That's exactly it.
My church, Fellowship Church, when I asked them to pray for the people of Iran, a pastor called me and we prayed for the people of Iran. The pastor didn't ask me if they're Republican or Democrat. He didn't even ask me if they were Muslim or Christian.
Right.
He didn't ask me their political ideology. He just prayed for them. But a mosque could not pray for other Iranians that are mostly
Can I
Muslim.
play that?
They could not pray for them. Yes.
Can I play that? Here it is. This is what you said, and I'm so happy you brought that up because I had this cut too. Here we go.
The Iranian people, the only help that they're getting is from Israel. Can you believe that? Not a single Muslim country in the Middle East has helped my Iranian compatriots, my family. They're getting killed, and Israel's the only help that there's helping. So, did you pray for your brothers and sisters?
What are you talking about?
Sisters in Iran that are getting murdered and raped? Did you pray? Did you pray? 100,000. The real genocide is going on in Iran right now. Did you pray?
Amen. I mean,
They
can I tell you
started
something?
calling for my beheading.
Powerful.
So
Powerful.
I took 4 older Iranian gentlemen with me because I'm like, guys, this may get violent. You know, I was scared. And one of the reporters from Dallas Express, he was scared. And you know, when we were inside the mosque, he'd never seen a mosque before. I'll be honest, I've been inside one mosque my entire life. This is the second time I ever stepped foot in a mosque. And that was a funeral, and I didn't want to go there. That was in Richardson. So that's the only 2 times I've ever been inside a mosque were in the United States. I never were, you know, when I was a kid, I never stepped foot in a mosque when I was in Iran. My parents wouldn't let me. But let me tell you this. This mosque, it had a body wash area, and the
This is
reporter
Epic
asked
Mosque.
me,
Epic Mosque
this
or no?
is Epic Mosque in Plano. It said body wash, and the Dallas Express reporter is like, "Hey, what is that? Is that a spa?" I said, "No, that's a mortuary. That's a mortuary. That's where they wash the bodies that are
Oh
dead.
my gosh.
Under Islamic law, they have to wash the body in the mortuary, and they do it inside of a mosque." And when I sent 42,000 campaign texts, I said, "I'm not saying no more mosque. I'm saying I'm going to close down every existing mosque in the state of Texas." And I got 4,000 hate messages and telling me F myself, most of them by liberal Americans. And they're like, "Well, you know, the First Amendment, you're a piece of garbage. You know, you should die." One person said, "I can't believe you want to close down mosquitoes. Why do you want to close down mosquitoes?" Anyway, and you know,
Mosquitoes. They meant mosques.
yeah, they got mosques and mosquitoes confused.
That's
But anyway, I said, listen, it's not so much that I'm not going to get in the way of your First Amendment right. I'm a constitutional lawyer by training. You know, I'm not going to, you know, I'm a securities lawyer and constitutional lawyer. I'm not going to get in the way of your First Amendment right. You have a First Amendment right to pray to whoever you want, or worship a goat or a devil, or not worship anything. You have that right. But let me tell you, when your right infringes my right, is that under Article 3 and Article 6, the supremacy clause, and the article that says, you know, there's only one court that's supreme in the United States, and that's Supreme Court, and all the courts that are constitutional set up by Congress underneath, those are the only courts. So when you have these Sharia courts that are doing, you know, parallel jurisprudence in the United States, that's illegal. That's unconstitutional.
Is that happening right now? Is it happening right now in North Texas?
That's happening right now. That's happening right now here in Plano, Texas. All over the state of Texas, that's happening.
Where? In the mosques? Inside of the mosques?
Inside the mosques, yes.
How do we prove that?
You don't need to. Greg Abbott knows about it. Greg Abbott came out and said there are Sharia courts happening in Texas right now. So let me give you an example of a Sharia court. There was a Sharia court in Afghanistan where Sharia law is the law of the land.
Yeah.
And a guy had his wife, and he had his wife's 14-year-old cousin. He rapes the 14-year-old cousin and gets her pregnant. And she has a child. They go to a Sharia court, and instead of Sharia court charging him for raping a 14-year-old, they charge her for enticing him to rape her. So now he's got 2 wives. One, I mean, this is what Sharia court is. Women have no rights in matters of probate. Women are worth half as much. So let me give you an example. Let's say you go to probate court, right?
Yeah.
And you die, and you have a son and 2 daughters, right?
Right.
In the United States, the probate court would rule that each of the kids will get 33%. Under the Islamic law, under the Sharia law, the court would rule that the son will get 50%, and the 2 daughters, they each get 25%.
Wow.
Because they're worth half as much as men. So this is a huge problem. So that you have these courts that are essentially invalidating constitutional legal courts.
What is when we see Islamic adult proselytizers, professional from Why Islam, coming in and being allowed to go into Wiley East High School, passing out Qurans and hijabs, candy, and understanding Sharia pamphlets. Again, they tell us the left and Muslims would laugh at us that are trying to defend this and say there's no Sharia courts. Understanding Sharia pamphlets. And you see that they're also serving Ramadan food to the teachers at a middle school, Cooper Junior Middle School, a couple years ago, and they're passing out pamphlets and books on how to teach to an Islamic student, as if there's a difference between my kid and their kid. When you see an 8th grade girl in the middle of a class at a separate middle school in Wiley ISD, passing out a Quran candy and a book on how to, for younger people, how to understand the Quran, and then Arabic tracing letters, and saying, I want to learn Arab, I want to read the Quran with you in the middle of class. What's
Let me ask
happening?
you, if they did that and taught Bible, would people not be up in arms about that?
Yes, yes.
And
And I'm
this is
gonna,
a Judeo-Christian country, and this was founded. The reason the United States is such a successful country, the reason our educational system is so successful, because it's a Judeo-Christian educational
right,
system. All
right.
of these people, when migrate from Islamic countries to Judeo-Christian countries, they don't migrate the other way around. Why is that? It's because their backwards ideology is destroying these countries, and they're trying to come just the same way the Californians are trying to come here and ruin Texas. These backwards Islamists are trying to come here and ruin this country, and they think, once they take it over, they're going to have this great caliphate. Well, guess what? They'll turn the United States into a shithole, like all the other places that are shitholes that they come from.
Yeah,
And
yes.
they did that to Iran. Iran was one of the best countries in the world. They turned Iran into a shithole, and we will save
So,
it. We will bring it. We will make Iran great again. We will.
and we'll get to that in a minute. So this is intentional. It's an invasion, and it's designed to take over.
100% intentional. No Islamic country allows people to stop traffic and do these stupid prayers in the middle of the street, but they're doing that in New York City. You know why are they doing that? They're flexing their muscle to tell them we've taken over in New York City.
Yes.
When they do the Muslim prayers called azan, and listen, the reason I'm dangerous to these people, because I know all their BS,
Yes.
and I'll call them all BS.
Yes.
The average person doesn't know enough. They can't read the Quran. They can't explain it. They can't understand it. I can understand everything about the Quran, and I can tell it, read it frontwards and backwards, and explain to them that they're full of crap. When they're doing the azan, the prayers on the loudspeaker, that's an infringement of my right. If I'm not
That's what
Muslim,
they're doing their call to prayer, you mean?
Yeah, when they're doing the call to prayer in Dearborn, Michigan, and in Brooklyn and New York and all over New York, that tells you that this is captured Islamic
We own
land
it.
now.
We own it.
That we captured this land. This is signal to tell them, hey, we just captured this land. There's no other reason for them to do that. No city should allow noise
Never.
pollution of their Islamic
Never.
prayer. If you want to pray inside your house, you have
Do
a
it.
constitutional right to do it. And by the way, let me tell you, only like 30-something% of Muslims in America are down with Sharia law. Majority of the Muslims are not down with Sharia. That's like the most orthodox, crazy,
Okay.
super radical version of Islam. Most Muslims are not down with Sharia law.
Let me ask you this then, and then Epic City, the city they're trying to build in Collin County, as well as Sustainable City USA, which is C Holdings LLC. They're trying to build this Muslim city where this Muslim company with all Muslim people on the board of the company, all based in, I think, UAE. They've built 4 of these so-called sustainable cities, roughly, and they're all in Islamic countries, and they all have a mosque in the middle of the city. And they're saying, we're going to build this in Coffin County, and no, it's not going to be Islamic or Muslim. You and I know it's a total BS. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to build no-go zones that are like big Muslim compounds in Texas? What are they trying to do there with these?
Look, listen, in London, they already have no-go zones. They're so dangerous that British people are scared to go in. They're basically gang raping women. They're doing whatever they want. It's the same thing as Chaz. Just think about it. Remember how stupid Chaz was?
Yeah, Chop and
Portland?
Chaz, those no-go zones
Yeah,
in
Chop and
Seattle.
Chaz in Portland, Oregon. These people are way more brutal, way more crazy, and they're saying, we're going to create our own Chaz, and we're going to have no laws, and the Constitution doesn't apply, and we're going to do whatever the hell we want. That's unconstitutional. They have to be stopped the same way. And by the way, it's not a racist thing. We didn't let a bunch of purple hair people create Chaz. Why would we let a bunch of
Exactly.
Muslim jihadists create their own city? It's equal protection of the law. You can't create a Chaz. You can't create your own kangaroo court, and you can't create your own Islamic caliphate. That's not constitutional.
Let me go back to something. I told you the Plano police contacted me, and they say about some incident, and I'm like, that's when we were all at the Epic Mosque hearing, and I'm aware of no incident, and they want to talk to me about an incident and stuff like that. Do you think if you had to speculate, do you think that's the same thing that happened to you? Do you think that somebody at the mosque is trying to get me in trouble with the law or scare me,
Yeah,
or I mean, what do you think that's about? Why would Plano Police reach out to me about an incident
I
that
mean,
I'm not aware of and have been no part
yeah,
of, other
how
than being?
many resources the Plano Police Department is wasting on these stupid mosques, right? I went there on a candidate forum. I was invited. I went there, and by the way, I kept it cordial at the end. I didn't want to get killed. The four Iranian gentlemen that were with me, they kept waving at me from the back of the room. Turn the temperature down. We don't want to
Wow,
get killed. They were
wow,
like begging me not to not. So towards the end, I was a little cordial just so we could walk out of there alive. And by
yeah.
the way, they followed us to the parking lot. They started taking pictures of all the cars. There was cars going back and forth. There was people chasing us. It was a hostile
Oh my
environment in the
gosh,
parking lot when we're leaving, and
in
that's
Plano.
with me. And in Plano, that's with me toning it down so it doesn't get out of hand. If I hadn't toned it down, we would have for sure been killed.
So
But
you
I
think
went
this?
back there 2 weeks later with a documentary movie producer. We never stepped foot on the property. We were on the
Yeah.
public street in Plano, Texas, where I grew up,
Yes.
and by the way, I was wearing a cowboy hat. I was wearing my sidearm,
Yeah.
and they
Good.
called they called Plano Police Department on me, and Plano Police Department sent nine. I have the video. They sent 9 patrol cars, 9 SUVs for just me. 9 patrol cars. Imagine the resources that were wasted. And the documentary director went over there and talked to them. And I said, one of the producers had a microphone. You could hear him. He said the 2 armed guards that they had at the Epic Mosque, they were scared shitless, and they called the cops. And the cops, I mean, they probably had such fear in their voice when they called that the cops freaked out and sent 9 patrol cars for me. And they said, "Well, why does he have a sidearm?" They're like, "It's Texas. Everybody, it's
None of your damn
constitutional right.
business.
It's
None of your damn
constitutional right."
business. Right.
But it was like they were scared. And by the way, since I've gone over there, there's been 9 different documentary producers and podcasters and Instagram posters who have gone there. And now like I think I broke the curse. No one would even would step foot there. They all knew it existed, but now everyone's going there filming. So
Yes.
now they're on high alert. And by the way, they need to be called out. We can't have unconstitutional areas within our communities. And by the way, why are they trying to build one in Van Alstyne? Why are they trying to build one in Kaufman? Why are they trying to build one in Wiley, places where there's no Muslims? They're trying
Yes.
to build these
Thank you.
mosques just like ghost cities in China, and then they're gonna do mass migration illegally or through H1-B and fill
Holy
these
crap.
places. And we will
Holy
not let
crap.
them happen.
Holy crap.
Let
Holy
me
crap.
tell you, if Texas falls, the United States falls, it's all over.
So let me ask you this, Abteen, former Republican candidate for Texas 32nd District. So you think, and I'm not going to keep belaboring this, I just had one last question. So you think, if you speculate here, you think the reason the Plano Police Department reached out to me, because I was there that day covering that hearing, and by the way, it was a public hearing that everybody was invited to come speak at.
Right.
You think that the reason why they're calling me is because the mosque is maybe trying to intimidate people like me?
Yeah, the mosque is probably just using our resources and saying, "Oh, you look at us, we're victims, we're being attacked," and
Okay.
this guy showed up without license on our property. What they probably don't know is that you were invited, and I would just say I was invited.
Yeah. So it's very spooky to me. So I wrote back. I called the number today, and I ain't talking to anybody over there because of the situation with Epic. I ain't doing anything unless it's being recorded, because I'm not going to wait. And if they say something, I normally have no problem calling the cops. I love the cops. My father is a retired Chicago police officer and federal and counterintelligence officer. I have another family member who's a police officer. I'm a multi-generational law enforcement family. But if they're calling me about something at Epic, I ain't freaking. I'll call them. I called the number, but and I told them, I said, why don't you DM me? I'm not giving them my information, but I'm like, why don't you DM me? Why would they post on it? That's a sidebar, but we'll see how that goes, and I'll keep people posted. Let's go to I'm going to let you pick. We're going to spin the wheel. We got 2 things left to talk about: the Iran war or the H1-B visas, and how it ties into the Islamification and the other stuff we're seeing in Texas. You pick which one you want.
Let's talk about H1Bs. And I think H1Bs. Listen. I spent the last 16 years. I'm a lawyer. I don't practice immigration law. I'm a securities lawyer, and I got training in constitutional law. But I've been involved in immigration. I've been involved in the EB-5 program. EB-5 program is a program that Congress passed back in 1990 as part of the Immigration Act of 1990. And the champion of it was Ted Kennedy, and the whole genesis was that investors that at the time invest $500,000 or $1 million in a job creating entity in the United States, as long as it creates 10 full-time U.S. jobs, that family, by virtue of their investment of 500,000 or $1 million, could sponsor themselves. The same way that company sponsors you or an employer sponsors you, you can sponsor yourself and you can get a green card residency for the whole family. So this program was a little used program in the downturn 2007. It blew up. I financed the Statler Hotel in downtown Dallas with that. Okay. I raised $100 million. I raised $100 million through the EB-5 program. Created almost 8,000 jobs. Wow. Like $265 million project. This is a building. The Statler building was a building that was vacant for 30 years. No one could figure out how to finance it. I did it, and I've done many other projects in Philadelphia, in New York City, in Harlem, all over the place. I've been involved in this for 16 years, and a lot of the lawyers that are immigration lawyers that I deal with in EB-5, they also work with H1-B. Okay. And listen, I had an H1-B employee when I was at Greystone in New York, and he didn't win, and he was Chinese. He didn't win the H1-B lotto. The reason that there's 200,000 visas a year that they give out, plus the wives get a F4, whatever the form is, and the wives get work authorization. Wow. So we uncovered in my campaign, we uncovered that the Greg Abbott and the governor's office in Texas not only did not stop it, but they're complicit. What does that mean? The state of Texas is the 4th or 5th largest employer in the state. And the state of Texas as an employer was hiring all these H-1Bs. There are schools and universities that are hiring people from India, from Pakistan to come here to teach English. So isn't that blow your mind? 73%. 73% of all H-1Bs in North Texas, which is the largest H-1B population in the country, are Indian descent. 12% are Chinese, and then the rest are everything else. A lot of Pakistanis. Wow. So a lot of the Indians, by the way, who hates the growth of the Indian population in North Texas more than Indians? Indians. Why? I was in Vancouver, and my cousin was talking to Vancouver, Canada. My cousin was talking to an Indian Uber driver, and he said, "Aren't you tired of the Indians?" And I was like, "Wow, you're being racist with the yeah." And I didn't understand the dynamic. And my cousin, he's like, "Aren't you sick and tired of all these Indians coming here?" And then the Indian guy opened up. He said, "Yes, we are." And I was like, I was shocked. I was listening to this conversation between my cousin and Uber driver. Well, my cousin knew something and I didn't know. I didn't know this, but there's a lot of Indians in Canada that are 3rd, 4th, 5th generation Canadian. They've been born and their parents born. Yeah. But the new immigrants, so Trudeau opened up the borders and the population of Canada went from 30 million to 41 million. So he allowed by the way, the same thing happened in the Biden administration. They just told everyone to sneak to the southern border. Yeah. They got 11 million and we got about 20, 30 million. Yeah. But listen, 20, 30 million in a country of 330 million doesn't 10%. Move the needle as much as 11 million in a country of 30 million. That's the population. And by the way, guess what? All those people that came to Canada mostly are Syrians, Afghanis, Pakistanis. That's and Indians. Bad. And by the way, the Indians, the Indians that are Canadian born, they hate these new Indians because the government in India is sending them. They're coming there and they're intimidating and blackmailing India, getting money back and sending it back to India. Wow! So it's like a blackmail operation going on by Indians. And by the way, these mosques here in Plano, guess what? They're military outposts and they're spying on the Indian population to send back home, on the Pakistani population to send back home, on the Arabic population to send back home. So the people that are here that are of Indian descent or Pakistani descent or Iranian descent or Arab descent, they're spying on them and sending that information back home. These are military outposts. Wow. In Iran, and we'll go back to the last part, in Iran, 780 mosques have been burned down. Now, that's not happening here, what I'm about to tell you, but in Iran, under Sharia law, women that are being caught demonstrating, something as simple as not wearing a hijab. I was at CPAC. A woman was shot in the face just because she didn't wear her hijab. Because she showed 2 strands of hair. She got shot in the eye. She lost her eye. And she had to leave the country. And she was here. She spoke at CPAC. This is happening in Iran. So the women that they're capturing, they're taking prisoner under Sharia law. If you're a virgin, they can't kill you. So whether you're a virgin or not, guess what they're doing? They're gang raping you, and they're saying, "Well, if she was innocent anyway, she's going to go to heaven, and if she wasn't, we gang raped her, and now she's going to go to heaven. So let's They gang rape them and then they kill them. Guess where they're doing this gang raping? Inside mosques. Mosques have weapon depots. They have jail cells. They're doing these gang rapings in mosques. So these mosques are symbols of hate, of destruction, of tyranny. And the people in Iran are burning down these mosques. 780 mosques have been burned
Of
down.
radical Islamists.
And all of that stuff is happening here. By the way, the 30 million people that sneak into the southern border,
Yeah.
if they're sleeper cells, guess where they're going to go get weapons, passport, support? They're going to these mosques. That's where
Right.
that's their military outpost. It's like
This is
if you have a diplomatic area where your CIA agents are going, every one of these mosques is these the CAIR and the Hezbollah and Hamas and IRGC's outposts. That's their safe haven. That's their safe house. Is these mosques. That's why I say I'm going to shut down every mosque, not because I'm trying to get in the way of anyone's First Amendment right. I'm trying to protect the Americans' other rights. Their First Amendment right, these unconstitutional mosques are getting in the way of our rights because they're spying on us and they're providing material support. These are treasonous mosques. Every one of these mosques is practicing treason. And by the way, Article 3 of the United States Constitution, before you even get to the amendments, talks about treason. Providing material support to the enemies of the United States. That's the definition of treason.
Real quick on the stats. I want to hit this real quick. We'll just get this from you. 73% of H-1B visas in North Texas. You said there's 700,000 H-1B visas in North Texas?
There's somewhere between 700 to 800,000 H-1Bs in North Texas.
Okay. And the other thing is...
all of Frisco. The population of Frisco is 1.5 million. I think something like 33 to 37% of Frisco is basically H-1Bs.
Okay, wow. 33 to 37% is H-1B visas in Frisco right now, the population. My God. Okay, so 73% of...
points, but it's pretty close to accurate.
73% of the H-1B visas in North Texas are Indian, and then you said, what are the other percentages? I want to write that down. I want people to hear that again.
12% are Chinese, and then the rest is everything else. By the way, Mexico, who's our closest neighbor, less than 2% H-1B. If you have a country and you're giving out H-1Bs, shouldn't Mexico be like 50% of all H-1Bs, not 2%?
Right.
And let me tell you, here's another crazy thing. On the night of the election, I got my tail kicked, but every single one of the people that I ran against in the Texas 32, including Jace Yarborough, a great young man who's going to the election in November, he asked me to be an advisor to him on this issue of Islamification of Texas, which is the issue that I ran in. Every single one of the guys that ran against the night before the election, I asked them to ask their voters to vote for Proposition 10 to ban Sharia, and we passed that with 95%. So that was a great success.
That was absolutely fantastic. Real fast, this is crazy through the Dallas Express today, how OnlyFans models are getting U.S. visas through extraordinary, this is going to, I can't say this without laughing, extraordinary ability loophole. And if they have like a lot of sales and they have a lot of followers and accounts and awards, and of course this also is for international acclaim, media coverage, high earnings, sciences, athletics, education, but they're also coming on these H1-B visas, pornographers. And
so let me tell you a funny story about that. There's a woman who's creating all these videos and in Iran going and protesting for the regime, right? And then they interview her and they're like, where are you from? Blah blah. And she's got these big lips and all the fake plastic and all that, And she says, well, I used to live in Turkey, but I'm so patriotic. I came back to Iran. And I wanted to be there for my, supreme leader and for the regime and this and that. So people dug her. They found out that she was an OnlyFans model in Turkey, and they have all her pictures of her naked. She's wearing hijab when she's demonstrating, but they have all her pictures of her naked. And she was an OnlyFans model, and then she got deported from Turkey, went back to Iran, and now she's a pro-regime. So I joked around that I think I saw that lady. She was on OnlyFatwas.com.
I call it a fatwa. It's a fatwa. That's a religious edict. That is a religious edict, right? From an imam, right? A fatwa. It's a religious order or edict, right?
She wasn't on OnlyFans. She was on OnlyFatwas.com.
Okay, so they say that increasingly, the Dallas Express says today, increasingly the O1 visa is an alternative to H1B. They also say Oracle, for example, is laying off tons of people, thousands, but yet they're saying it's AI, but yet They're among one of the top employers of H-1B workers in Texas. 11,000 approvals over the past between 2020 and 2025. Unfreaking believable. Any comments on that before we pivot to Iran and the war?
Yeah, let me tell you, it's a travesty. So I think one of the biggest issues that we have is our youth are getting disenfranchised because they can't get jobs. And the problem is their education system. They got a bunch of lefties in grade school and high school that are telling them, go get a liberal arts degree, where a liberal arts degree is completely worthless. They graduate with 100, 150,000, 200,000 in debt. And the only job they
Yeah.
can get is 30,000 being a bartender or whatever, because that liberal
Yeah.
arts degree is not worth anything. Well, what do employers need? Employers need a bunch of STEM degrees, right? So they go hire somebody from India. And by the way, here's the other crazy part. Most of these people that are coming here from India, the degrees are fake. They found so many different farms
Really?
printing these degrees. So they're going and buying a $50 fake degree, coming here, getting a job, getting paid 200,000 a year, and with a $50 degree. And our students that are spending 150,000 getting a degree are getting a job, getting 30,000 a year. One of my friends
Wow.
came to my election night party, and he owns a car dealership out in Euless.
Yeah.
Direct auto, if you want to go buy a car, by the way. Anyway, he told me, he goes, it's a travesty. Somebody that graduates UTD that has no credit,
Yeah.
I have to give them a 10% rate on their car rental. But there's some stupid program. This guy that's coming from India with a fake degree, because he's H1B, some program gets them a 5% auto rate. So why is it that we're treating these foreigners,
My
paying
God.
them a lot of money to do jobs that, by the way, most of them could barely speak English? Why are we bringing them here to teach English? That makes no sense. Why are we bringing them? So the problem starts all with the H1Bs, and now the liberal arts person, they get disenfranchised, they get upset, they become socialist, they go to the
Yeah.
No Kings rally, they go to the Palestinian rally, and they become socialists and they become radicalized. But if they got a job and got paid 200,000, trust me, they'll be a nice member of society.
Yes.
But we're giving these Indians those nice jobs, and they're taking all that money, sending it back
Wow.
home, adding nothing to our economy. And the kids, which we should be coddling, we should be treating them great, we're destroying them, and then they become radicalized and they become, No Kings rally protesters.
Let's talk about and just to reset for folks that are just joining us, Abteen Vaziri is a Iranian American, or just American or Texan, as you say. But your dad was in the military in Iran before it was overthrown by the mullahs, and you speak Iranian Farsi, right? Which is what they speak there, and you have in-depth knowledge about Iran, the people, the culture, everything, as you call out also radical Islam, and are conservative Republican. Now, I just wanted to reset that. Folks going, who's this guy, right? Who's this handsome Iranian-looking guy, the fellow on on my computer, on my
I'll take the handsome. I'm old and my hair is all gray and I color it.
So, okay, I want to just jump into Iran because this is something else. Number one, I believe the war is absolutely righteous and important. I believe that a few things. People do not know this, and I don't know why President Trump didn't say this last night in his speech. Currently, as you know, we killed Osama bin Laden. Then we killed Ayman al-Zawahiri, the number 2 in Al-Qaeda, in Afghanistan, I believe it was. And then number 3 under him, who's the leader of Al-Qaeda, is literally living in Iran right now. Number 2, Osama bin Laden's son, the heir apparent, is living in Iran right now. Number 4, whatever the number's next, is on 9/11, Iraq. The 9/11 report said that Iran gave safe passage for Al-Qaeda, gave them passports and documents so they could come slaughter 3,000 of us. I don't know why he didn't mention that last night. Number 2, they arm and they killed 240 of our Marines and other folks in Lebanon in the Marine barracks. They killed hundreds, if not more, of our soldiers with IEDs and all sorts of weapons they provided in Iraq and Afghanistan, murdering hundreds, if not more, of our soldiers. They murdered 46 Americans, along with the other, 1,000+ Jews that were slaughtered on October 7th, when Hamas, which is all owned, run, and operated, and funded, and trained, and weaponized by Iran, slaughtered those Jews. 1,200 if I'm not mistaken from the number off the top of my head, along with killing 46 Americans, taking them hostages, brutally raping the women, just doing vile satanic things as radical Islamists do. They also train and arm Lebanon to the north, Hezbollah, I should say, to the north. They used to work with Bashar al-Assad, sending massive narcotics to sell to raise more money for terrorism, and would move it through Syria and their weaponry through Syria to Lebanon. They arm and train and give massive weaponry, including very much more modern missiles and all sorts of stuff, to the Houthis in Yemen, which are radical Islamists. Our military, our Navy under Joe Biden, from kissing the Islamist butts of Iran's, and giving them money and all this kind of stuff. What it got us was our military, our Navy, I should say, in the Red Sea was, quote, at the highest level of combat. Our Navy was at the highest level of combat since World War II under Joe Biden, because he was letting the Houthis, attack us. There were so many times we almost got killed. So many drones that almost hit and killed our soldiers. And so this is what kissing Iran's ass, excuse my language, does. Number two, they had enough nuclear enriched uranium, 60%, to make 11 nuclear bombs. They could have put it on a crude, dirty bomb on a boat, pull up to New York City in Manhattan, and blown it up and have God knows how much of New York City, if not all of it, uninhabitable, releasing nuclear material into our atmosphere over our country. And they, within 6 months, they could have put it on a ballistic missile. They also lied about the ballistic missile, saying they were only 1,200 miles or 1,200 kilometers. I don't know which one it was, but it's twice that. And they actually tried to hit Diego Garcia Base in the Indian Ocean, which is like 2,500 miles away. So they can strike in the heart of Europe, which Europe doesn't care. They're pansies and appeasers, but we care. So those are the kinds of things that it matters. And they control 20% the Strait of Hormuz right now. It's not the Straits of Hormuz. Why do people say that? Why do they add an S to that? But they control. I know the Straits. They're the gays of Hormuz. Oh my gosh, there's gays in Hormuz. What? That could be the Iranian, the Islamic, the mullah's secret gay porn stash for what's his name? Wait, tell me his name. Hold on. Who's Yes. Mustafa Khomeini. His secret gay porn palace can be filled with the gays of Hormuz. We have figured it out. You're a good moneymaker. You can finance this. Let's market it and make some money before we kill the guy.
I did see one interview that Elon Musk posted that somebody was at the No Kings rally and said, "Hey, what do you think of these Straits of Hormuz?" And it's like, don't you think it's unfair that we're talking about the Straits and not talking about the gays? And
yes,
she's like, "Oh my God, it's so unfair," and she's going on and on. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is
the
type of people that are going to the No Kings rally."
Yes.
And by the way, let me make one statement. These same morons that are going to, and I'm sorry to have to call them morons, but it really
is what it is.
These morons that are going to No Kings rally. Do you know how many years President Trump has been in power?
4 plus, right now, 1.5,
5.
1.25. Yeah.
So he's been in power 5 years.
Yeah.
Do you know how many years Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and Chuck Grassley been in
30,
power?
40, or 50.
Chuck Grassley, 51 years.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell, 41 years.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, 39 years. Chuck Schumer, 45 years. Every single one of these has been in power between 40 and 50 years, which means my entire life. Trump has been in power 5 years, and they've tried to destroy him, kill his family, bankrupt him, shoot him in the air several times, and they're calling him kings. But these power-hungry old hags that are all in the 80s and 90s, they don't call them kings. But this guy's been in power 5 years. In 5 years, he's accomplished a lot, and they call him a king.
By the way, I also forgot to add that Iran has tried to kill President Trump twice. There was a Pakistani guy that the Iranian terrorist
that we know of.
Yes. The Iranian regime tried to kill Trump. There was a Pakistani man just, I think, either sentenced or convicted or on trial a week or two ago for it. That was adjudicated or it was some such in the news a couple weeks ago. And they also tried to kill. They've had hits out on former Trump cabinet officials. What's the guy's name? I can't remember his name. He hates Trump now, but he was the
John Bolton.
Gosh, Bolton, yeah, John Bolton, and then but also Pompeo. They're trying to kill him. There was a cabinet level Trump official who they attempted an assassination on. There's a plot to assassinate one of the Trump top officials in D.C. at a cafe as well. So this idea, and then by the way, also like I think my son or somebody was talking about this, and like, well, but when they say death to America, they don't really mean that. So, not because they believe that, but somebody told them that. Tell me, just give me your response to all this about why Iran is, why I explained why they're a threat and why this needed to be done.
So every president since Carter has had no courage to go and take these guys out. And by the way,
Right.
we've had plans to attack Iran since the early 90s. I mean, the War College has been practicing it over and over and over, right? And by the way, one other thing that you forgot is they also involved in so many different terrorist attacks, including the bombing of the Buenos Aires, Argentina, Jewish center that they killed, 1,200 people in that bombing as well. They were behind many other things.
USS Cole, the Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, the bombings of our embassies.
All of that. So here's the thing. And I went to Fordham and I got invited to this breakfast. At the time, Ambassador John Brennan came, and he was just one of the biggest morons. Yeah. He was lost actually on the way to Fordham University to speak. And I'm like, you went to Fordham and you're the head of CIA. How are you that stupid? Anyway, we get there and he gives the speech, and I didn't want to get kicked out of my last semester at Fordham, so I didn't say anything. I raised my hand to call him an idiot, but then I changed my mind. This other Korean student, he starts saying, we're fighting a proxy war against Iran in Lebanon. We're fighting a proxy war against Iran in Syria. We're fighting a proxy war against Iran in Lebanon. We're fighting a proxy war against Iran in Mogadishu. We're fighting a proxy war against Iran in Yemen. We're fighting a proxy war against Iran in Gaza and Israel. 7 different proxy wars. How much money he spent? How many American kids died in these proxy wars? And then the same idiot opened his arms like, well, yeah, we're doing the JCPOA because there's these other parts of the Islamic Republic, and they're the moderates. I was like, you either have to be a sellout to America, or as the head of CIA, you got to be the biggest moron in the world that you think people that have turbans on their head are somehow moderate. The moderates and the conservatives, they're all married together. By the way, when I met Ben Shapiro 12 years ago, he also said the same dumb thing, and I called him out. And he goes, well, you don't know. I was like, Ben, I assure you, you're right. You read this book, but the book is wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, but you read a book that was dumb, and you should know better. I mean, he was really young at the time. I was like,
what did the book say again? What did the book say that he was wrong on? I'm sorry.
Well, he called me out. He goes, well, there's moderates, and the moderates really want change. By the way, we found out today.
In Iran.
In Iran. We found out today, the same, the guy, Larijani, that they just executed, who was the biggest butcher that killed all these 45,000 people. He was the head of the moderates. There was a lot of these other people that were so-called moderates. There's no such thing as moderates. So the Iranian people have woken up that there's no moderates. It's just a game they play to fool the West. And we've always known it all along. I've known it all along. But here's the thing. The United States found that all of our enemies are working together. Iran is working with North Korea. They're working, when I had a sanctions class in law school, there was a partnership between the cartels, the Muslim Brotherhood, and dealerships in Egypt, where they're all washing money. So what does Iran do? Iran is partnering with the cartels and sneaking people and things across the southern border. Yes. Iran had a military outpost in Margarita Island in Venezuela. They were training Hezbollah and Hamas under there.
Yes.
So why did Trump go there and plug that? Because they were getting ready to launch an attack from Venezuela to the United States. So Trump went there, grabbed the oil, made Venezuela safe, and then went to Iran and is taking these guys out. These guys, I mean, listen, these guys were so stupid when they were negotiating with Jared Kushner and
Steve Witkoff.
And by the way, I've done an EB5 deal with Steve Witkoff, pure gentleman, one of the nicest, most honest guys to work with. He had a guy named Brett Muffson that used to work for him that I dealt with. These guys are really, really smart, good guys. Right. I don't trust Jared Kushner to be negotiating on our behalf because he does too much business with Qatar. Okay. But let me tell you, as much as I didn't trust these two guys to negotiate on our behalf, they went there and Steve Witkoff was on Hannity. He said, listen, these guys were so stupid. They told us they had enough material. They had
to make 11 bombs.
460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, enough to make 10 to 11 bombs. Yeah. And they showed their card. So now we said, well, you've been hiding all this stuff. You're not supposed to be making bombs. They thought they're home free. They thought they're like North Korea. They're over the threshold. Now we're going to respect them and recognize them as a nuclear power. Well, no, they didn't have a delivery system. So Trump's like, I got 3 weeks to attack these MFers. If I don't, they're going to be nuclear power.
Right.
And by the way, the whole genesis of nuclear power, right? We have this mutual destruction pact that Russia doesn't want to nuke us because the minute they nuke us, every one of their cities is going to be nuked before they can blink, right? So that's the genesis. No nuclear power is going to go nuclear war, including North Korea. As crazy as they are, they're not stupid enough to nuke us. But imagine you have a death cult.
Yes.
You have a death cult who wants nothing more than Armageddon. That's what they want. So
to usher in the 12th Imam. Yeah.
It's usher in the 12th Imam because they think that the 12th Imam is going to come and they're going to kill all the Jews and then they're going to live, with the 72 virgin goats forever and ever. Imagine you have a death cult that's 1 or 2% of the population of Iran that don't care about the 90 million Iranians dying, which they've shown. They're just
Yes,
everyone. So the whole concept is they're invaders of Iran. They're basically Iraqis, Syrians, Indians. Most of them are not originally Iranians. These are invader Muslims that have come and taken over as leeches. And all the money that they get from Iranian government is spent on missiles and nuclear power to try to annihilate Israel. And by the way, if Israel nukes them back, they don't care because they're going to go hide in the bunkers and kill all the people. So you cannot have a threat of mutual destruction like you have with the Soviet Union with the death cult. You can't. That doesn't work.
That's what I had to explain to somebody.
This is how stupid people in the United States are. They're like, Iran was no immediate threat. Iran has been saying death to America for 47 years. Iran's been calling us the great Satan and Israel the small the small Satan. How stupid do you have to be to think this is Israel's war? Israel is doing our dirty work for us. Israel did us a huge favor to get rid of this regime once and for all. And then, by the way, the people that say that President Trump, he's already had regime change, he's going to let them survive, he's going to negotiate. There's zero chance of that. That's just President
what
Trump.
I wanted to ask you about that too.
And he wants to be unpredictable. He doesn't want them to know what he's doing. And he 100% trusts Reza Pahlavi, who is the crown prince of Iran, who is popular with more than 80% of people inside and outside Iran. And President Trump doesn't want to endorse him because if he endorses him, he puts a target on his back. The Democrats will destroy him. They were trying to assassinate him. And by the way, he doesn't want an endorsement for President Trump because there was all these rumors that his father was a stooge of the United States and he was a puppet. He doesn't want people to think that. And his father wasn't. It's completely false. In fact, he was tough on the United States, but he was doing all of the United States bidding in the Middle East. He was keeping the Middle East safe. And ever since he's been gone, look, all the Middle East just fell apart. Middle East was safe until he was there.
So, so the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi came here for school and was basically, I don't know how old he was, but he's living in Virginia with a lot of protection because Iran's obviously.
He lives in Maryland. Well, he was living in Potomac, Maryland, but they just sold their house and he's in undisclosed location, and rightfully so because people are going to try to kill him.
So, and has always been mentioned as one of the top possible people that could take over. First of all, Trump's in a hard spot. Trump has to, the headlines about oil, the national price of oil yesterday when I was filling in Phoenix was $4, but in Phoenix it's like $4.90, $4. It's insane. And it's because of obviously what's going on. And that's understandable. I realize and you realize it's temporary, but the people that are out there, the average people, my wife sent me a text. She's in our camp politically and, all that kind of stuff, 110% lockstep with us. But she doesn't follow all the politics. She just, asked me, what do you think or what should I do here? And I don't like to tell her, but I do now. I'm like, okay, if you don't want to follow politics, I'll tell you what to do with our values. But my point is this. She goes, oh, my gosh, $65 to fill up our car, which is usually $35 to $45 over the past several years. You know what I mean? And that's a hell of an increase, right? People are seeing that, and so that can't last. So here's the rock and hard place I'm trying to say. So that can't last. Trump cannot keep doing this, but he also cannot end this war prematurely, or he cannot end this war until those sons of bitches are on the last little teeny rope of power, and everything's been disarmed, and the people need to rise up and take over this government. But I don't know that's going to. That's. And I know I do believe you, but but here's the thing. So Trump, first I want to say is Trump's in a rock and a hard place. He's got to end this as soon as possible, but he cannot. I will slam my fist. He cannot end this prematurely. He's got to finish the freaking job, or the same thing's going to happen. Yeah.
President Trump doesn't want to be Bush one and go in there and attack and leave Saddam, and then they regroup, and then he has to go
Right.
and create another mess. So
He's got to
President Trump's
finish it for
smart.
good.
He's never going to do that. Now he plays his poker with his cards close to his chest.
Yes.
There may be a time where he's going to listen. We're not sending 50,000 boots on the ground troops there to just sit there and look pretty. They're there for a purpose, to put enough pressure on the regime that they lay down their guns and they hand power into a peaceful regime. And anything short of that will be malpractice. And Trump is very smart. He's never.
Right.
I trust President Trump. I don't trust all the Republicans. I trust President Trump. He will get this done. He does not want his legacy to be George Bush 1, where George Bush 1 kind of completely destroyed Iraq, and then George Bush
Yes.
2 went in there and made it even worse, right?
Yes.
So Trump is very smart. And by the way, could you imagine that the Iraq war, we only had 13 people die? The Iraq war, what did we have? 4,000 people that got perished? This has been a huge success. Let me tell you one other thing. It's interesting. The same liberals that were drumming the beat of war to go to war with Ukraine, a country that's literally zero threat to the United States.
Right.
Russia is not a threat to the United States. If they were going to nuke us, they would have nuked us a long time ago. We would have nuked them back, and they're never going to. They're them attacking Ukraine. That's a threat to Europe. By the way, the same European allies that did nothing to help us.
Yes.
And by the way, the Financial Times and the BBC and the Telegraph, every single every single British paper is talking about how we're losing the war, because you know why? They're the ones that put these mullahs there. These are their guys we're fighting, and they don't like it.
Let me get into this. We know that between 35 and 45,000 people were slaughtered when they rose up 2 months ago, or roughly, in Iran, in the streets. And the message is, I mean, I'm hearing stuff about they're waiting until the people rise up against the country, their radical Islamist government, the regime, until the bombing's done, but they don't want the bombing to stop until most of everything is finished off. But they're going to have to fight people that are their livelihoods. Every bit of all these people in the regime, they're intertwined, deeply embedded into the entire country, all over the place, and they have checkpoints, and their salaries, their ability to live is based on being loyal to the regime. And so, how are the people after 45,000 have been slaughtered? And I was so pissed at Trump, I called him out that he didn't do everything that we're talking about sooner when it was going on. He said, I'm coming, we're going to help you. And I was pissed. For weeks, I was like, what the hell, dude? What the hell, dude? It takes time, though. I understand that. My point is, after all those people were slaughtered, and they don't have weapons as far as I'm aware, how the hell are these people that I support going to rise up against this freaking government? How's that going to happen?
So I was at CPAC last week, and the Crown Prince Saturday morning came and spoke, and spoke very articulately, very beautifully. And he said, I asked the people of Iran to rise up January 8th, 9th, and a lot of them were killed. Right now is not the time. Right now, people need to stay inside while Israel and the U.S. are finishing the bombing. When the time is right, I will call on the people, and the people of Iran are the only ones that are going to go get their country back. He's basically saying, we don't need boots on the ground. We need boots on the ground under extreme circumstances. Now, we need to have the threat of boots on the ground as support, but the Iranian people are going to need to go finish the job. Let me tell you how important it is that we have Second Amendment here in the United States.
Yes.
If the people of Iran had Second Amendment, these guys would be on their ass 45 years ago. They would have lasted 47 years ago.
Yes.
I was at a wedding. My cousin married a German guy. I was at a wedding in Italy, and a lot of the people were Germans and Italians and French. And I was holding court, and my sister's like, please don't start with politics. I was like, no. Let me talk to them. So I held court, and I started talking to them, and most of them were actually like-minded. They were conservative. And they said, we agree with everything you have to say. But what we just don't understand you guys' obsession with guns. Why are you so obsessed with these big guns? And these school shootings break our heart. You guys got to stop these school shootings, right? I said, listen, how many school shootings have there been? 10, 20, whatever. How many, on average, 40 people? How many people do you think they've died in this school shooting? 1,000? How many people do you think died under Stalin and Mao when they took people's guns away?
Millions.
75 million under Stalin and 30 million under Mao. I said, every time there's a school shooting, it breaks my heart. But the alternative is 70 million people dying. I can handle another 5,000 school shootings so we don't have another Stalin, we don't have another Mao. And I
Yeah.
said, the reason the United States has been a successful country for all these years, people don't know that, but there's 1 billion guns in the United States. So on average, every American has 3 guns.
Right.
That's the reason the United States has never been attacked on our homeland.
Amen.
No one has the balls to come to the United States because
Amen.
the people of the United States are the second largest army in the world. And by the way,
Amen.
do you know who the second most powerful Air Force in the world is?
Who?
United States Navy. You know who the fourth largest Navy in the world is? The United States Coast Guard. So we have like
Oh my
number
gosh.
1, number 3, and a lot of these categories. But the reason that our government has been successful, we have this beautiful constitution that's lasted 250 years. It's the reason our country is so successful. And the reason it's so successful is we believe humans can't be good, that humans are corrupted. So we have checks and balances. We have the executive branch, the legislative branch, judicial branch, and all these branches, they check and balance each other beautifully. That's why there are no kings. That's why this whole no kings
Right. It's a joke.
demonstration is it's a joke, because there are no kings, because of checks and balances. But I said, do you know what the most important checks and balances and all those checks and balances are?
What?
Or one that nobody ever talks about is the Second Amendment, which gives the people a check on the government. If the government becomes too tyrannical,
Yes.
the people have the right to rise up. I said, that's why the United States is so successful. That's why we're obsessed with guns, because guns mean freedom.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, how do we get those guns to the people? I mean, is this going to be a CIA? I know that how are we going to get the people armed? How are we going to overthrow a government when, I mean, the most boots on the ground we're going to have is probably the Karg Island and a few of the other islands that Iran stole, the Iranian mullahs stole from UAE owned some of those islands. It's not just Karg, there's other ones. Other than that, we're hearing about
that's a falsehood. If you read that book I just read, The King of Kings, so the British decided they're no longer going to have an empire, and so they started leaving all these places, and they started leaving the UAE. And the Shah of Iran flexed his muscles and went and took those islands, and actually was fair to the UAE. There's the greater tome and the smaller tome, Abu Musa, and the greater tome and the smaller tomes, and those were really important islands to keep the traffic. And Iran was the United States' closest ally, so Iran went and took those and kicked the British out. And the one of those two of those islands, the UAE had half rights to them and gave them those half rights.
Okay.
The other ones, the British were threatening. So the mullahs didn't take that. The Shah of Iran took those, and rightfully so, to make sure those waters were protected. You know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. You know, people think that there was a coup d'etat in 1953 and we helped the Shah of Iran. No, the Shah of Iran, his father took power by force, and his father was exiled, sent to Gibraltar Island. He took power when he was 22 years old, and the Mossadegh who helped nationalize the oil, but the Shah, his father nationalized the oil companies. But when they nationalized the oil companies, the British thought Iran was their personal property. The British tried to go to war with Iran in 1950s, and then Republican President Eisenhower called the British and said, you better take your naval ships back. Iran is our ally. You're not going to war with Iran. So they were pissed. Finally, in the moment of weakness, MI6 convinced the Carter administration to allow them to replace the Shah and backstab the Shah and put these mullahs in charge. So these mullahs are controlled by the British. That's why the British are pissed, because these are their guys. They've been robbing Iran blind with the mullahs. The mullahs work for the British. Every single one of these mullahs has property in London. Why is that?
Yes, because billionaires row. Billionaires
all
row.
of them, all of these mullahs, Mujtaba Khamenei himself, all his family members, they all have property in London and in Vancouver and in Toronto.
Unbelievable, my brother. Now, so how's this going to happen? And it's pure speculation for you and me, but you got the couple of U.S. Marine Expeditionary Units, MUs they call them, where they do littoral movement. They work in littoral operations. Littoral meaning shallow waters. And so that's where they could be going in to take out all the mining capabilities, the guns and armament to attack from the shore, drones and such. I could see us doing that to secure the shore along the Strait of Hormuz and you know, the Red Sea and all these other areas that are necessary, right? But like,
let's make a dollar wager. I'll tell you my theory. What I think is going to happen.
But real fast. Here's the questions I want you to answer. Is number one, how the hell are we going to get the people to overthrow the government when they don't have any weapons? Is the CIA or some such going to be providing this thing? And is it something that they're probably already working out with Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi to have all these people come in from all sorts of areas from around? You know, we've heard about the the Kurds, perhaps being willing to come in and help, from this angle. I mean, you have two Texases the size of Iran. It's unbelievably huge. So how's this going to work? We're not going to put tons of boots on the ground at all, other than probably the littoral, I'm guessing. We probably will have to go in unless the Iranian people can actually overthrow the government, which is we're all hoping will happen. If that doesn't happen, we got to get that nuclear material out of there, because those radical Islamists will always seek to get it and use it. So how the hell are we going to arm these people? Who's going to come in and do this action? And what about the nuclear stuff? Go.
I think. By the way, Iran is bigger than two Texas. Iran is like size of almost 90% of Europe. So it's a big. When you look at the globe, it's actually the sizes are actually not correct. The actual size of Iran is something like half of the size of the United States, or 2/3 the size of the United States, and the size of Europe. So Iran is pretty big. Right. But I suspect that the special forces, the Army Green Berets, are going to go in only to take the nuclear material, and that's their job.
Right.
And I think the Marine Expeditionary Forces are going to go in to give weapons to the people and let the people take over and not have boots on the ground. They're just going to be there, and I think the Apaches and the A-10 Warhawk are there to give them air support so they can go in and take out the government. But I also think that the Crown Prince and Mossad have many people within the Artesh, the regular military, that have already been in discussions. When the time is right, they're going to turn and they're going to join the people. But there's going to be weapons already in Iran. But I think the Marines are going to go in, give weapons, and they're going to finish the job. There's zero chance President Trump is going to make a deal. He just wants the world to think that I gave these guys every chance to make a deal, and then.
Okay, and then, but you also got to think about this. I'm just thinking aloud while we're talking about this, and everything you're saying makes sense to me. But if we arm them directly, and something bad happens with you know how that works out. We arm the Mujahideen, and how did that work out, right? And I know that Iran, the people are not Mujahideen. I'm just saying,
people are Mujahideen. All people love the United States. They love Israel. But they just want their freedom. And listen, I got asked this question: are people in Iran to be trusted with guns and Second Amendment? Listen,
I'm not saying that.
If people in Iran can't be trusted with guns and Second Amendment, then they don't deserve to have freedom. They will 100%.
Right. No, I don't disagree with that. But what I mean to say is plausible deniability, where if we give them the guns directly, then something bad happens, then there's a massive scandal. So, like, I'm wondering if the guns come from something.
We're already all in. Trump doesn't care what anybody thinks. We're already all in. We're going in, and if what people think scandal, whatever. Listen, Trump is going there to liberate these people, and once these people get liberated, imagine we have Venezuela that's got the largest oil reserves in the world, and Iran that's got the second largest oil reserves. Now these are going to be our allies. Imagine the business opportunities.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
The Crown Prince was here. He was talking. He went to Old Parkland and met with a bunch of business leaders. The possibility of all these business leaders, oil and gas executive, tourism executive, to go be able to open this amazing market. 90 million people who are 98% educated, 35 million or so college graduates that are all hungry for jobs. They're going to, the economy, the amount of boom in the economy that's going to happen for the world economy, it's going to be humongous. And the United States is going to be the biggest beneficiary. And when Iran falls, that's going to be the domino effects. All these Islamists are going to fall. The world is going to be a better place. And you can have a very close ally of the United States in the Middle East, where 85-90% of people love the United States.
Here's what I believe will be my final question. I don't want to say that, and then it's not my final question. Trump says, 2-3 weeks. You and I know he's in a vice in this country because he's got to get done as soon as possible, but he can't do it too early. I will be damned if he does that. And you and I know he hopefully won't, because he can't, because otherwise it'll be a complete failure. He's got to finish the job. But he also is in a vice with time. So what do you see as the timeline, regardless of what he says publicly, 2 or 3 weeks? Because he can't let this go anywhere near towards the midterms, or we're going to get super screwed. And we already are screwed probably for the midterms, but he can't let it go on too long. But then you got this overthrow of the government, and if there's a detachment in time between when he supposedly wraps it up and when the overthrow happens, we're everybody's screwed, all of us, Iran and us. So how do you see this playing out with timeline? And then I'll let you go after that, I promise, unless the second question comes up.
No, I think Trump doesn't want to risk too many American lives. One, because of his legacy. Two, because of the midterms, right? So I think the United States is going to play more of a kind of a referee in that area. Israel is going to be a little bit more hands-on, and Israel is going to help arm the Iranians. this isn't something that's going to get resolved in less than 6 months. It's going to be 6 months to a year before all of these people are thrown out, and then Iran starts kind of the rebuilding phase.
Yeah.
And the crown prince has planned all this. He's got a team. He's got people that are going to write a new charter, new constitution. They're going to organize an election. People are going to decide to form a government. But before all that happens, there's something like 300,000-400,000 crazy loyalists that are 12th Imamers that believe in the apocalypse. Those people need to be neutralized. And the United States cannot risk boots on the ground to do that. The people of Iran are going to do it. And the United States and Israel, I think, are going to play more of an advisory role to make sure they have air support and they're not getting slaughtered. So, and by the way, there's going to be a lot of Iranians that are going to have to die, unfortunately, to get their freedoms. But you're not going to be able to get freedom against a death cult until you're going to have some people that are going to have to risk their life. But the people in Iran, they already feel like they're dead. They feel like they're boiled frogs, and they feel like, hey, we're going to have to go give our lives to get our freedom back. And so they're willing to risk their lives. I don't think the American kids are ready to risk their lives. I think America is going to fill more of an air support role and support the Iranians as they go do their jobs.
So you envision maybe Trump wrapping up in earnest, like the big stuff going on right now that has to end soon, in like maybe a month perhaps, and then you envision the overthrow starting shortly after that?
I think Trump is not sending troops, 50,000 troops, to be out of this war in 2 weeks. He's saying what he wants to say, to be unpredictable, to force them to lay down their guns and give up, to ease the markets. He also has to play the British. He has to play the Russians, the Chinese. And by the way, people from Iran are messaging me. He said, please don't let the bombs stop, because the minute the bombs stop, they're going to focus on us. They're going to kill us again. As long as they're getting bombed, they're too busy. They're not going to come kill us. People in Iran, the first people in history that are begging for the bombs not to stop.
Yeah, I saw that in a press coverage saying, I think it was either CNN or it was Fox on the other side of the border with Iran. They said a guy said he was outside of the country, he just got out, and he said we're sad when the bombing stops. We're afraid for when it stops, because that means that they're still there.
That means that's on our ass now. Now they're going to come after us, because now they're even more mad. They're going to be even more brutal. They're going to be even more killing, more raping, more of that, because now instead of being worried about getting shot by a drone, they're worried about going and killing the people again.
Abteen Vaziri, former candidate for Texas representative, congressman, District 32, an American, born in Iran. You were conceived here, but you were born in Iran, and freedom-loving radical Islamists calling out to the umpteenth degree, you have to keep running for office.
Not radical Islamists, calling out radical Islamists.
I meant the other way around. Oh my gosh, yes, you're my friend. He's just radical Islamists. No, but you know what I meant. I meant calling out radical Islamists to the umpteenth degree. But you got to keep running. You got to keep doing this. You're very important, and I'm really grateful to have spent time with you on the phone and now on the show, and I look forward to having you on again down the road. And I'll try not to make it so lengthy next time. Okay?
No, I appreciate it, but let me tell you what an amazing takeaway was at CPAC. I messaged them. I was like, I hope you're ready for 4,000 people that didn't even know what CPAC was 2 weeks ago showing up. And by the way, they showed up. There was a lot of rallies outside of CPAC. They were all respectful. People thought that these people were like the Palestinian or No Kings rally.
No, they don't know.
They were there to support President Trump, support Netanyahu. They all had Israeli flags, Iranian flags, with the lion and with the lion and sun, the correct one, without the Allah garbage on top of it. And they had American flags, and they were all respectful. They all showed up. And what I'm telling people, there's 200,000 Iranians in Texas, Iranian Americans in Texas, and there's 2 billion Iranian Americans in the United States. And they're one of the lowest turnouts for voting. We got to get these guys registered. A lot of them now identify with the Republican Party. They appreciate what President Trump and the Republican Party have done. My goal is to try to get as many of them registered to show up more to the voting in the midterms, and hope they can, go up in the midterms and make a difference for us.
I'm grateful for you. When you have what's called a thumbnail on when we do a show like this. In my thumbnail, I have a couple things for tonight's show, which you couldn't see. You'll see it after we get off the air if you want to check it. But it's me, it's you, it's my little logo for my show, and it's the Iranian flag. And I know that the Shah was overthrown in '79, but I said I want the Iranian flag from 1978. to make sure I had the right one, and it's got that lion on there. There's no Islamist stuff on there, and the American flag is there, and that damn mosque from Epic is there in between us, just because it's they're talking about what's going on. So
I want to turn that epic mosque into a legal poker room. Hopefully, one day we'll turn that into a legal poker room.
well, I'll play, but I'll play with your money because I suck. Okay.
I used to play poker professionally for 5 years between like 2007 and 2012, and I actually still I go to a World Series. I'm playing, so I love playing cards, and I think that would be a perfect place for a legal card room.
I think that's great. I like that idea. And I have a friend of mine who was so good. He got good at counting cards. He could, and his brother was a semi-professional poker player and did pretty well. And it's a brilliant mind that can do stuff like that. I'm barely lucky if I can keep up with anything. I suck. I'm not gonna lie. On all things cards, I just suck. And when I start losing, sometimes I'm really good.
Speaking, and that's something that most people are not very good at.
Sometimes when sometimes I'm really good and I look like I'm freaking awesome and smart, but then like that'll last. Sometimes I clean house on some things, but then most of the time it's like when I bowl, I have one really good round and people think I'm good, and then I suck after that for every single round, and so I have to resort to different tactics when I'm playing cards. If it's you and me at your house, there's like 5 of us, I have to resort to attacking my opponent verbally. I try to mess with them mentally because that's all. It's my only last weapon.
I tell people that I shoot, in the 90s and hundreds, and we go out and I drive the ball really well. I smack it, and they're like, "Oh, you're sandbagging." I was like, "No, watch." And then after the 5th hole, when I start falling apart, making it 12 on a hole, they're like, "You're right. You're not sandbagging."
So what you're talking about golfing, right? You're talking about golf.
Yeah.
Because that's what I told my last story real fast with golf. When I was in Madison, Wisconsin, a friend of mine who did a little pro football and he was in college football and stuff. And he's like, "Let's go golfing." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "I'm gonna warn you, I suck." And sometimes I hit it and it looks good, but other times I suck. And I said, "I'm gonna lose a lot of balls." He goes, "No, that's fine." And like after the 6th or 7th hole, like sometimes I was great, and most of the time I suck. And then he got mad at me. I'm like, "I told you I was gonna lose all your freaking balls, dude. I told you." Abteen Vaziri, I can't wait to have you on again. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for all that you do for this country and for all of us. Thank you very much, my brother. I consider you a friend now. Thank you.
One last word. Just be careful with this Islamification in Iran. People blinked, and one day they didn't even know the country turned Islamic, and every beer factory got shut down, every movie theater got shut down and got turned into mosque, and all their freedoms are gone overnight. We cannot allow that happen in the United States, and definitely not in Texas.
That's why we need you and others to stand up to say, "I know what this is, and here's what it is," and call it out nakedly, what you do. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, okay? Look forward to having you on again.
Thank you for having me on. It was so nice to chat with you, and sorry we talked so long.
No, I'm not sorry. I feel bad for you. I'm like, I'm having a ball over here. Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
I appreciate you. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. All right, that was Abteen Vaziri, and what a hell of a guy that guy is. And I'm so grateful we have him on our side. Some of the comments, Marcos Lopez says, "Another amazing show. Thank you for having Abteen. Thank you, Abteen, for exposing it all." And also Thomas Brooks said, "I made it. Better late than never." Good. You can also go back and watch the rest of it. So thank you for all your comments, guys, and for everything. This show is brought to you by IRSprob.com. That's IRSPROB.com. Or call 214-214-3000, helping good people with IRS problems, specializing in IRS controversy, IRS audits, and tax planning strategies. I will see you very shortly on the next show, guys.